All right, well, welcome to City Hall this evening. Another healthy crowd in, which is good. I'd just like to start the meeting by just acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we're meeting tonight, and that's the Wadawurrung people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. Apologies this evening. We currently have Councillor Murray who's on leave, Councillor Mansfield on leave, and Councillor Asher is an apology. Are there any others to be noted? None, thank you. We have 2 leave of absences to be dealt with. So the first one is for Councillor Sullivan from the 2nd of August to the 31st of August. Have a move and a seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Mason, move. Seconded. Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you. And Councillor Nelson's taking leave from the 11th of August to the 24th of August. Moved. Councillor Sullivan, seconded. Councillor Manane, thank you. Those in favour, those against, thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 25th of June 2019. Moved and a seconder. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Contel. Those in favour, those against, they're carried. Thank you. And the special meeting held on the 4th of July. Moved Councillor Sullivan, seconded Councillor Mason. Those in favour, those against, they are carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest to be noted this evening?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I've got a conflict of interest on item 8. As a result of some of the tender applicants being customers for a company that I'm a director of.
Just a notice for the audience. I guess I mentioned that we're on the internet, so we're live. For our council meeting, as long as you're aware that some of your comments may appear on the internet, or you may be filmed and be on the internet. So just so you're aware of that, this is a live recording of the meeting, is on the internet, and
try again, Bruce.
all right, thank you. Can you hear me up the back? Okay, thank you. Okay, just a reminder, we are live on the internet. You may be filmed or recorded as a result of that, just so you're aware. And our meeting recordings are up on our website shortly after the meeting, so just so you're aware. Declaration of interest we've done with Councillor Contel. Now's the time for public questions and submissions. We have a number of questions that have been forwarded prior to the meeting, but everyone will get an opportunity to ask a question should they wish to do so. So, start with the questions we've had submitted prior, and we have a number in relation to climate change, etc. So, our first question is from Judy McDonald. Is Judy with us this evening? Oh, take it on notice. Oh, sorry, Judy. Right, thank you. Sorry, there's a seat and a microphone there, so that's okay. Welcome.
Hello.
Sorry, yep.
Yep, sure. Hi.
Thank you.
So I'm here tonight to ask a question in regards to climate control. My wish is for my granddaughter to grow in a world powered by clean energy in a country which isn't reliant on the production of fossil fuels and agriculture as its main source of income. So my question is, what are your plans to support the accelerating adoption of solar and wind technologies? For example, would you support increasing research and development funds to advance renewable technologies? Would you support tax credits to help businesses and consumers cover the costs of transitioning to solar and wind? Would you strive to ensure that renewable technologies become the top priority of state and national energy policy? Thank you.
Questions? I have quite a lengthy response to a number of the questions that are going to be presented this evening. So what I intend to do is take these questions from the personnel and then make a response at the end. But I will just touch on a couple there because they are slightly different. Supporting the tax credits to help business and consumers cover the costs of transition to solar and wind without passing the buck. We can certainly advocate in that space. That's really federal and state levels in relation to tax credits. But in relation to other questions, I'll certainly be touching on those in my response. But we do thank you for coming in and obviously highlighting the particular issue that you're advocating for.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks.
Judy, sorry.
Yep, thank you.
Our second question tonight, Susie Brown. Thanks, Susie.
Thanks for taking my question. So the most important issue facing all of us right now is to fix the climate crisis. Unless we do so, we're all facing potential extinction along with most species on the planet. What more important mission could we all have than saving ourselves and our children? Will Council take this grave issue seriously by firstly declaring a climate emergency, secondly tasking all its staff with acting on the climate crisis within their jobs and not just leaving the issue to be handled by the Environment Department, and thirdly supporting community members to know how to take action on climate in their own sphere of influence? Thank you.
Thanks, Susie, for your questions. Again, I'll respond to them all in just the ones at the end of the questions on that topic. But thank you for coming in. Sonia Van Hewitt. Sonia here. Hope I pronounced that right. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
I'm Dr. Sonia Van Hewitt from Deakin University. The facts I've got regarding the council were actually taken from your website, so if they're inaccurate, it's because your website doesn't have the up-to-date information for me. First of all, I represent a break-free Greenpeace group for the City of Greater Geelong. We're working towards a climate declaration emergency. We have collected over 800 signatures and we'll be submitting all of the signatures at the next meeting. Demand for fossil fuel energy releases greater than 56% of Victoria's net greenhouse gases. Geelong's the second largest city in Victoria and the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases from regional and metropolitan areas. You promote the region as a destination for new residential suburbs and estates. Many new estates are built on cleared or reclaimed farmland or swampland, which were previously known as carbon sinks. Most new housing areas are not well serviced by public transport. The average work-related round trip for the per employed person per day of employment is 50 kilometres by car. Many older residential communities, such as Ocean Grove, are not well serviced by public transport to major destination centres, such as Deakin University. My first question is, when will the City of Greater Geelong require a mandatory 10-star energy rating for new housing and public building construction and compulsory energy harvesting infrastructure such as solar, and I also would like to include water in with that as well, and demand better public transport services for residents using the Public Transport Victoria and local providers to help negotiate with them. Second, from information available on the Council websites and reports, the City of Greater Geelong offsets approximately 40% of its carbon emissions external to the boundaries of the Shire. When will the City of Greater Geelong remove external carbon offsets and instead spend ratepayers' money through re-establishment of carbon sinks within the city boundaries and introduce more stringent regulation of areas being cleared now for construction?
Question. Oh, sorry.
I encourage Council to be transparent with forward progress, honest over the difficulties that arise and commit to the education of residents to reduce their impact. I acknowledge the City of Greater Geelong on their recognition of climate change and make mention of quotes from Councillor Mason, quote, "Climate change does have a cost, it is real, and the costs of mitigation are real. Doing nothing could lead to significant repercussions." And Mayor Harwood, quote, "The City of Greater Geelong has a duty of care to act on climate change modelling." My last question is, when will the City of Greater Geelong declare and act on the climate emergency we are now facing?
Good question, Sonia. As I say, I'll address all of those with a response shortly. Thank you. Ian, sorry, I've got Ian Yule who's down next. Is Ian here? Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Councillor. Ian Yule, the President of the Geelong Interchurch Social Justice Network. In the face of rapidly increasing climate change, Britain, Portugal and Canada have all recently joined 850 other municipalities around the world in declaring a climate change emergency. Will the Council of the Greater City of Geelong publicly acknowledge the climate emergency and seek to implement a municipality-wide climate emergency response, review the Council's strategic plan, create a foundation for climate emergency action, and implement a climate emergency plan? An emergency requires an emergency bipartisan response from all levels of government. So could the Council do its part, please?
For your questions this evening, Ian. Caitlin Ramsey. We have Caitlin here this evening. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Ramsey. I'm a 19-year-old student and resident of East Geelong. I'm also a volunteer and member of the Australian Youth Climate Coalition. Australia be one of the hardest hit countries by climate change. We can expect much longer periods of time without rainfall, long and relentless droughts, food shortages, coastal erosion, rising sea levels, and mass displacement of our population. The average maximum temperature in Geelong has been predicted to reach 21.8 degrees with the complete elimination of winter as a season by 2050, according to the Australian Conservation Foundation. The climate crisis is our biggest opportunity to build a fairer society and economy that works for the people and our planet. We can achieve this in our community with rational action. We can bridge the gaps of inequality, evolve our local economy, and create a city that leads in sustainability practices. This is my future, your children's future, your children's children's future. My generation will not stop fighting until our grievances are acknowledged, until our First Nations peoples fight for land rights and respect for the sacred environment are acted upon, and we are able to step up in this pivotal time in history to uproot the systems that have allowed climate change to grow to be the greatest threat that we face today. My question is quite simple. It's, will the Council declare a climate emergency? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Caitlin. Caroline Danaher. Is Caroline with us? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Caroline Danaher. I'm an aged pensioner. We've just listened to a 19-year-old. I might be dead in about 7-10 years' time. I might have had more life than some of the young people who are here if we don't do something about the climate emergency. All of us have been polluting and expanding as though there is no tomorrow. Tomorrow is now today. Change begins with education and legislation. Recycling and pollution have been largely ignored and left to be taken up by individuals and community groups, unlike very effective campaigns for road safety, for example. So my two questions: how will Council educate and legislate for bins to be used correctly so that recycling, reusing, repairing are mandatory, where possible, to keep landfill clear of plastic and all recyclables to avoid further damage to our climate with methane and contamination of our waterways? How will Council educate and legislate the twin issues of sustainability to building developers who use unsustainable, good quality land and unsustainable, unsuitable houses in the climate emergency we now face?
Your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just there may be further questions on the environment as we go, but I'll just make comment in the questions we've received thus far. They're the ones that have been sent in. I think it's fair to say that we all share the same concerns about our climate. We all understand and have been better educated and informed in recent times as to some of the issues that we do face. This council has been quite aggressive in addressing some of these issues going back to 2007, 2008 when we started future-proofing Geelong. So this council has been at the forefront in relation to the environment and issues surrounding that. Just a couple of quick comments. In April 2017, these are recent times, April 2017, the city adopted the Zero Carbon Emissions Strategy. Council also adopted the Community Zero Carbon Action Plan in September 2017. In 2015, the City of Greater Geelong became the third local government in Australia to achieve recognition as a One Planet Living Council. The City is now working to update the Environment Management Strategy and develop a new One Planet Living Action Plan to further embed sustainability in the region. Our coastal project is a partnership with community, all levels of government and coastal management agencies to respond to the challenges of coastal climate change. In relation to environmentally sustainable design, we have an ESD policy in the planning scheme which ensures that future development achieves best practice in environmental sustainability from the design stage through to the construction and operation. This policy specifically, the specific objectives relate to energy performance, water resources, indoor environment quality, stormwater management, transport, waste management and urban ecology. And in relation to our waste and resource recovery strategy, which is a very topical item at the moment, and one we'll be further discussing later tonight, the development of the waste and resource recovery strategy guides our resource recovery programs into the future. Extensive community consultation is being undertaken as part of the process to develop that strategy further. Council has taken a lot of leadership roles in issues in and around the climate and the environment of our community. We do have a designated environmental department, but the organisation works very closely together in relation to these particular issues that we face, and we are increasing our renewable energy capacities within the organisations with solar panels in particular. And I'll just make a couple of comments. Council is no different to any other part of the community. We all have families, children, grandchildren. We all have deep concerns about our community and how its future might look and what role we might play in that. We all take that very, very seriously because we are all affected. No matter what decisions are made, we are all affected. And it has to be a joint action. It can't just be 11 councillors and the council group. It has to be our work with the state government, with the federal government, with the communities. One group, one city can't fight this on their own. So we fully understand the emotion and the passion and the urgency that's been brought to the council this evening. We fully understand that. And it's not to say that we can fix it overnight, because we can't, but what we can say to you, we do take it seriously and we are taking action in relation to what we can do. In relation to, I guess, our overall issue in relation to the request to be part of declaring a climate emergency, we're aware of that. We haven't had that discussion formally as a council. We will be doing that shortly, and we'll be taking the concerns of the community and the comments on board when we do have that conversation, and what comments we will make as a result. I'll just make those comments in relation to the questions asked. There may be more, but I'm not too sure. Councillor Aiken, do you want to say something at this stage?
I just want to respond as well to you, Mr Mayor. Look, I too want to congratulate the community for this campaign. It actually isn't just tonight that the community's actually brought this issue to us. They actually are running a very good campaign at the moment in terms of drawing councillors' attention to this particular issue. I actually think this is an excellent example of thinking globally and acting locally, which is what this campaign's all about. The designation of climate change emergency is actually an international campaign that in the last month the New York City Council has adopted a recommendation to declare city a climate emergency. The City of Melbourne has done it in the last month as well too. and the City of Sydney has already previously done it, and there's a number of councils in Melbourne that have done it, and in fact the City of London has also done it as well too. So this actually is a national campaign and international campaign that is encouraging local government to actually understand the significant role that it does play in the climate emergency that is had been around, not just now, it's been going for a very long time. And I want to tell the community that's here tonight that please don't judge us by us not adopting that designation tonight. We've actually had some brief discussions as councillors ourselves, and we actually want a more meaningful response to the issue. And the more meaningful response is to also actually articulate what we are doing as a council in relation to climate change and what we want to do as a council in relation to climate change. And I'm pretty confident that there will be a report and motion that will come to council at a later stage that's not coming tonight, but it will come up shortly, which will address the issues that have been put forward to us tonight in terms of questions, and also the emails and other correspondence that we've received as well too. And I can also assure the community that our new youth council has actually been very strong with us as well too, to actually remind us about what impact the climate makes for their future, and drawing our attention as the elected councillors to consider what they have to say on this issue as well too. So I congratulate you for being part of this international movement. Please be patient with us in terms of we want to come back in a very professional manner and respond to you. We could make a decision tonight to just declare a climate emergency does exist, but we actually want to give more substance to that statement and actually say to the community, substantiate what climate emergency actually does mean and what impact that this council is responding to. The Mayor's already identified some issues. We want to work with the Youth Council, we want to work with our community, and we want a very worthwhile statement that actually shows true commitment and true understanding of what climate change means and what impact it will make for the Geelong community. So you will receive, I believe, what you are asking for, but please be patient with us until we can release that to you.
I'll keep the meeting moving. I'll go to our next question, which is from Jennifer Bantow. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. I got around to sending my question in early this time. Thank you. I'm representing the Geelong and Region branch of the National Trust with this question this evening. A few years ago I was asked to write the foreword for a booklet called Exciting Geelong and try to define Geelong's identity. Although it's forever changing, the qualities that characterise Geelong are somehow constant. In my opinion, the words established, well-grounded and stable could be added to the title clever and creative to describe the personality of this place, as well as resourceful, resilient and inventive. The massive changes in Greater Geelong in business and in the economy, from a manufacturing and industry base to state and federal government services and education, health and other services, have been swift. And there's a parallel expression of another sort happening. I think it's evident here tonight. There's a quiet movement of activism by community cultural groups that's taking place. Those who may be sporty and love going to the footy, netball and cricket and playing golf or bowls are also members of a diverse range of cultural groups which need support and a place to express these serious leisure interests. Photography groups who opened an exhibition with international entrants on Saturday in the library, an engineering group, radio and electronics society, instrumental groups, a community orchestra, choral groups, history, genealogy, stamp and coin clubs, writing and reading book clubs and countless more. These are amateur groups distinct from the professional expression of the visual and performing arts in the Art Gallery and GPAC and the specialised collection of the Wool Museum. They are not simply audiences. Members are active in the satisfying, fulfilling activities of these groups. The groups comprising the Osborne Park Association have continued to meet regularly. They're committed. The Geelong Museum Association holds a monthly guest speaker gathering. The Geelong Historical Society does the same and publishes a scholarly, quality quarterly journal. It's perhaps as a result of this council's demonstrated and genuine readiness to listen to the people who elected them. Individuals and members of these groups have become more vocal. Prosperity, longevity, increased leisure time, increased disposable income and good education enables those who are involved in these absorbing, stimulating pastimes to enjoy a good life. These pursuits are not just hobbies, they are strong, serious, long-term, abiding enthusiasms and passions. On the 11th of June this year, Geelong and Region Branch lodged a submission to Council about the future ownership and adaptive reuse of the former Geelong Post Office. That submission was supported with letters from 5 organisations: the James Harrison Museum Group, the Geelong Historical Society, the Geelong Museum Association, Studio of the Lost Arts and the Geelong Children's Museum. The submission in all represented at least 1,000 people. A significant coincidence with this matter about a safe keeping place for Geelong's heritage has just occurred. The television series Aussie Inventions That Have Changed the World, which goes for an hour, aired on Fox History Channel 608 last night. I don't know if any of you saw it. It was excellent. Last night's episode was about the preservation of food and it featured James Harrison. It's poignant that it happened, I think. It was filmed more than a year ago, but it was presented last night. It was an explanation of his refrigeration invention and his patents, his life story, beautiful footage of Geelong, interviews with Darryl McClure and Graham Hobbs. The filming was done in March last year, so it's quite poignant that it was shown last night. If you missed it, it's going to be repeated 5 times this week, so everyone can catch it. It mustn't be missed because it makes you feel very happy to live here with this wonderful heritage when you see this film. This example epitomises the possibilities ahead if we seize the moment to retain the post office as an unrepeatable opportunity to promote our city. How can Council provide for their many constituents who are part of a quiet movement expressing the need for support for their diverse cultural interests? Could retaining the former Geelong Post Office as a cultural centre, as the Geelong Design Showcase and Collections Education Discovery Centre, be part of the answer?
For your comment and question, I guess the short answer is yes. It's just a matter of how that may come about. So, and I think that's, as you've been a part of and aware of, there's been considerable work done in recent times to try and address some of the issues that you've raised and some, I guess, confirms or support some of the comments that you've made. So we appreciate your questions and your comments tonight. But yeah, look, the future of the post office, whilst maybe unknown at the moment, its potential is valued by all. Victor, thank you. Thanks, Victor. I don't think I would have got that out correctly.
Phonetic pronunciation. Foreign names always usually follow that rule. Good day. Thank you, councillors. My name is Victor Gustoudis. I live in the St Catherine's estate, which is at the west end of Roslyn Road. In May of this year, I was shocked to discover that a 16-unit apartment building was going to be built around the corner from my residence at 327 to 329 Roslyn Road. The way this has come about, without any planning notice being given to residents, has come about through the use of Planning Amendment 52.22. My question is with respect to the diminished planning role of the City of Greater Geelong due to this planning amendment, allowing the Haven Foundation to develop this 16-unit accommodation building, a commercial building in a residential area. Compare Highton with Haven's 20-unit development opened this year in Frankston. Frankston's Haven development area is a zoned commercial one to provide increased housing density. This zoning is completely different to Highton's GRZ2 residential. My questions: With respect to the use of 52.22, 1. My understanding is that the Haven Foundation has been able to, in secret, for a period of 7 months from January 2019 or earlier, to use the services of the City of Greater Geelong Planning and Building Regulatory Departments to arrive at a compliant design that would allow the construction of a commercial 16-unit apartment building on a residential site zone GRZ2 at 327 Roslyn Road, Highton. Is this true? 2. Is the City of Greater Geelong content to see their planning role diminished through the use of this planning amendment, as in Haven's Heightons development? 3. Has the City of Greater Geelong considered if there is any action it can take to protest the removal of its planning role due to this planning amendment? 4. Is the City of Greater Geelong considering action to protest the removal of its planning role, and if so, what action? 5. Does the City of Greater Geelong believe that with the issue to Haven of Certificate of Compliance, this ends its role as a regulator of the design proposal and moves the City of Greater Geelong to a role of building compliance regulator?
Thank you for your questions this evening, Victor. I'm going to go to our Director of Planning, Gareth Smith, to address some of those issues that you've raised.
The Mayor, thanks for the questions, Victor. I guess more of a general response overall to those points you raised and the questions that you've made. Certainly, as you're aware, you're correct in that under the statewide provision, under the Victorian Planning Scheme, community care accommodation does not require a planning permit, subject to meeting certain criteria of clause 52.22, as you've mentioned. Based on these provisions, Council's Statutory Planning Department reviewed the submitted proposal to ensure it was compliant with the planning scheme. Subsequently, a certification of compliance was issued to Council, and we take no further planning role in the development. So that is the end of that role. With regard to the building aspects of it, building regulations, a building permit is required, and the applicants have the ability to use our building services or external service as well. Of course, it's noted that tonight there is an item for the Council to consider, if they wish to consider that, under urgent business also on this same topic around section 52.22 of the planning scheme.
Thank you. And for how long has Haven been using the regulatory get compliance on this development? Like, from my understanding is they bought the site on the 21st of July 2017. So almost 2 years later, residents are finding out about this development. How long has Council known about it? And how long has it been conducted in secret?
The Minister, the first part of the point I think you've raised was again, when was it introduced into the planning scheme? It was October last year, the Minister introduced this. I'm not aware of the Haven Foundation's role or involvement that they've had in, or understanding of its existence. I'm not sure of those timeframes you mentioned regarding purchase of the land, of course, as well. It's not something that Council will get into. They approached us in January this year, so the Council isn't aware of any, or wasn't involved in any of the purchasing process or awareness at that stage. It's not until they actually start considering looking at the planning aspects of it do they approach us, and did they approach us? Like I said, it was about January this year.
And there was no information to residents, and it was only by accident in May of this year that residents actually found out that this was going on.
Yeah, correct. The process is, because it's not considered a planning application, which does become the public process, Council doesn't make that aware to the broader community following that process the Minister introduced in October last year.
Thank you.
Will be further discussed this evening, though. Thank you, Victor. James Hayes. Is James here this evening?
Thank you for taking my question. My question to members relates to recent changes by the Planning Minister with Amendment 5222 that has removed councils and the public's input regarding the development of aged and healthcare centres in residential areas. Traditionally, it has been the requirement of developers to advertise their intent, thus allow the public to channel input regarding the planned development. But this has all changed, with the developers now building in any residential location without input of the public or council. Residents, when aware what is to be built, have no avenue to object and no recourse to the courts. This is a very troubling turn of events in a democratic country. The Minister says it's for expediency. Well, I see this as contempt for the public, along with the councils of this state. These draconian measures implemented by the Minister are making the residents in my suburb feel helpless, frustrated and very angry. My question to you as members of our local government and representatives of the people of Geelong is, what are you intending to do so as to restore your role, along with returning to residents, an avenue to have our say in what is developed in our residential precinct? And I hope your reply is not to say it's a state issue and not the council's, for this is an issue that directly involves all of us, and our democratic right needs to be restored. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, James. Unfortunately, this is a matter that's been handled by the Minister for Planning. The Council has not had an opportunity in that particular initial decision-making process to be involved. As such, this has been made by the Minister for Planning. What we intend to do is lobby the state government in relation to what's occurred. And that's a discussion that will be taken later this evening. Thank you. So I don't mean that to be a cop-out, but that's our position. Peter Chandler. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, councillors. My question relates to matters of safety of... I'm a resident of Roslyn Road, Highton as well. My question relates to matters of safety of the residents on Roslyn Road. I refer you to your council plan 2018-2022, putting our communities first. What it is reported that improved safety of our community is a key priority. So I would like to ask how that is progressing, considering in that key priority, considering that Roslyn Road Highton, which was designed with a capacity of 10,000 vehicles, we would imagine has surpassed that. In 2016, a council traffic survey identified a count of 9,000 vehicles a day on Roslyn Road Highton. Since then, in terms of what has happened in Highton, approvals in Roslyn Road, well, the Japara Aged Care Facility with 180 beds and staff, Haven Foundation Facility with up to 19 residents, multi-unit developments, planned expansion of Highton Primary School, proposed major expansion of Highton Shopping Centre with parking and apartments. Then nearby we have continued growth of nearby estates, planned expansion of Epworth Hospital, Deakin University upgrades, increased traffic runoff from Geelong Ring Road, heavy traffic from Mundana Heights and other suburbs. So Roslyn Road has become a major gateway to many of these facilities and resources. So considering the 2016 traffic survey of 9,000 vehicles a day, I'm asking about the safety of the residents, but more alarmingly, I'm asking about the safety of future residents of the mental health residential facility of 327 and 329 Roslyn Road Highton, who likely, if you imagine what sort of residents will be there, they will be significantly medicated. Has the Haven Foundation really done its due diligence here, or have they rushed this through? If you consider the side effects of one of the major medications that would be used would be an antipsychotic medication, and the side effects are drowsiness, dizziness, disorientation, restlessness, blurred vision. So my question is, what is the council's responsibility over the safety of its residents, and even more particularly, the future residents of this small facility on Roslyn Road? On a road, it's been placed on a road that is unsafe, and it's being pushed beyond its capacity.
Questions this evening, Peter. With respect, I'd suggest the welfare of the residents of Haven Foundation will be their responsibility on site. Obviously, our responsibility is any person in the community using footpaths or etc. around our region, and council responsible roads are our responsibility, and they are taken seriously. In relation to the increased volume of traffic, There's a number of studies that are being conducted in and around that area, and there is discussion and thought around, in particular, Roslyn Road and Thornhill Road, which is arguably the most problematic point today, let alone what's going to be occurring in the future. So those discussions are taking place now in relation to the movement of traffic around that point. Your comments are valid and they are being taken seriously. Thanks, Peter. Richard Chorus. Thank you, Richard.
Good evening to all. This question is centred around the purchase of the property at 327 and 329 Roslyn Road of an architectural home, then the demolishing of this property to make way for a commercially run mental health facility of 16 units. There's no objection to the proposed facility, but to the size and location for the wellbeing of the facility's residents. The question is, was the council aware of the transition in this residential zoned area prior to the purchase? And if so, did council work with Haven Foundation on any due diligence prior to the siting of this commercially run mental health facility? Does council not feel the need to add an amendment prior to any future sale in Geelong to ensure compliance with previous planning law before a land grab begins and Planning Amendment 52.22 overrides any democratic right of objection from local residents?
Good question, Richard. I believe Gareth has actually answered that particular question, but again, we understand your frustration. We are also feeling frustrated by this particular process, but as I say, a decision has been made by the Minister and we are bound to that decision, but that's not to say that we can't have further discussion to lobby the State Government on behalf of the community with this particular issue. And we'll be discussing that further this evening. Thank you. That concludes the questions that were sent in. Any other questions from the gallery? So we'll get through you all. So we'll start at the front and we'll work our way through. So, yep, thank you. But everyone will get an opportunity to come forward.
My name is Ray Pearce and I'm asking this question on behalf of the Geelong Interchurch Social Justice Network, and it's about refugees. I know that places like Designation, Crag, people in Queenscliff, rural agencies for refugees, the Welcome Place do lots of things, wonderful things to help refugees, but this is a question to the Council. What's the City of Greater Geelong doing to assist and support asylum seekers in the Geelong region? Do they provide any facilities, financial assistance, personnel, goods, etc. to help these people? Assistance has become even more important as the federal government has, for many of the TPV holders, that's temporary protection visas, have had their support cut off. This support was about $35 a day. The loss of the SRSS, the Status Resolution Support Services, will have an impact on the asylum seekers in the community. So we want to know, what does the council do to actually support refugee asylum seekers?
We have a number of extensive programs through our community life area that work with our disadvantaged community, and it is extensive. I'll go to Director of Community Life, Robin Stevens, perhaps to elaborate a bit further and have some better detail, but I can assure you we do actually go, we work quite closely with a number of disadvantaged parts of our community.
So the disadvantaged refugees?
Yes, they are. My word, they are.
Yeah, I've just wondered about others. Yeah.
Robin.
Thanks. Robin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So as the Mayor has pointed out, we do offer a range of programs, but primarily we work in partnership with organisations like Designation and other services that work with refugees in ensuring that they have access to appropriate services and facilities in our municipality. In regards to the SRSS funding, we have taken an advocacy role and have been writing to relevant authorities and supporting other organisations such as Designation in promoting the requirement for refugees to have access to adequate funding to have a suitable lifestyle while they settle in Australia. So we'll continue that work, and if you're interested, there's information available on our website and through our Multicultural Action Plan and Advisory Committee on the range of activities that we're doing in that area.
for that.
We fully understand in relation to your comment about reduction of funding available. There is no doubt if funding is reduced in those particular areas, greater pressure will go on council to try and continue to support those in our community who are disadvantaged and don't have access to proper funding and opportunity. So it just filters down to us.
On the council and all the charities and the other community
who are all
groups
under pressure at the moment. No,
Thank you very
your
much.
point's well made. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to cross over as we go, but just down the front here. Thank you, sir. And we'll get through as best we can.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. My name's Charles Cameron from South Geelong. I've written down a couple of issues here. Would you like me to speak to both of them?
If you have some questions, sir, we're happy to take those.
Well, thank you very much. The first one's in regard to the former Geelong Post Office. The history of post offices in Australia generally is one of concern because they're just diminishing. The former buildings are just being sold off, and we're ending up with shop fronts and all that sort of stuff. So it's really second rate. In recent years, we've lost the Richmond Post Office, which housed the the Post Office Museum. The Postmaster Gallery, which is another section of the Post Office, is gone. I'm just wondering whether this facility, this marvellous facility, could become a national postal museum. We've got the National Wool Museum. How about a national postal museum here in Geelong? My other questions it takes us across to the Riverside Park. In the area immediately uphill from the cafe, which I think would be to the west, there's an area there of perhaps a hectare, a couple of acres, with some very substantial trees on it. And every time it rains, that area gets washed away. All the soil and detritus ends up in the driveway and the car park. That to me seems to be a bit of a waste, and it's not too good for the trees and so forth. So I'm wondering if the council has thought about how they could ameliorate that and make it a more attractive part of the landscape without impinging on the health of those substantial trees.
Appreciate your questions this evening. Well, I can take the Rippleside query to our Parks and Gardens area and make some inquiries through there. In relation to the post office, it's a discussion that's still continuing with council. What options may lay ahead for that particular building and its operations as such, and I guess it's opportunity for the community to engage in that building.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Would you like me to leave this with?
It will be fine. Where's our up the back? This young gentleman, Paul, will come and take that from you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. I think I'll go back to this side of the room now. Thank you. Yep, we'll try and zigzag our way to the back as we go.
Evening.
Good evening.
As we know, all the submissions we had here are very important. I'm Fred Timmers. I represent the Dutch at Diversiteit, the Dutch community. And been involved with Pekko Festa since the start, you can say. I will make it short. My question is, will the council increase the funding for Pekko Festa to enable us to grow? To grow?
To grow, sorry.
To improve.
Yep.
To improve. As we all know, it is very important for the people of Geelong that day, but also for all the shops around and etc. So it brings a lot of money in at that day. So maybe we get a little bit back from the council here to help us to improve.
Appreciate your questions and comments this evening. Council currently funds the Paco Festa to about $82,000 per year, and that has been increasing substantially in recent times. So there'll be further discussion on that this evening, but we do appreciate your comments. And this council has been instrumental in being engaged with the Paco Festa and also helping the Paco Festa when it was in dire need of assistance. When it went from 2 days down to 1 day and was really facing some very difficult times. The Geelong Council was very strong in support, and that remains today. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emma. I'm from the Indonesian community of Geelong, and I represent the Indonesian Association of Geelong here in this evening. I would like to add to what Fred has just mentioned, how important Paco Festa is for Geelong, and as a way of investing, nurturing and fostering the community, and especially the young people, and also to encourage them to become future community leaders of Geelong. And that's how very important Paco Festa is. And I've myself have experienced a lot of support from Diversitat, the Pulse Radio, for example, and it has become such a beacon of encouragement and support and education for those who've just arrived in Geelong. So, yeah, I echo the comment by Fred and the communities. Thank you.
Certainly understand your comments, and as I said before, this council has been a very strong supporter of that event, of Paco Festa, and remains so today. Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck, yep.
I might just add, it's on item number 4 tonight, so if you wouldn't mind, if you want to hang around for item 4, and then we can have a conversation.
Lex, is it? Yes. Just a little dark spot there. Welcome.
And I've initiated the change.org petition to keep Geelong's iconic post office for community use. So thanks for this opportunity. And my question is about the clever and creative strategy. Oh, before I start, I actually pressed send at 11:58 on yesterday. Then I thought, I don't think I put my name on that. And by the time I did that, it was 12:02, Mr. Mayor.
Oh,
So,
if nothing else, we're punctual.
pardon?
If nothing else, we're punctual.
Extremely. Anyway, thank you. So the Clever and Creative Strategy 2017, the Council Plan 2018-22 and the draft social equity policy on this agenda. And I attended an excellent talk at the National Wool Museum last Sunday. It's a regular series, recommend it to everybody. This one was Communicating the Warrnambool Road Race, the first 60 years, by Mr. Barry Abley, who also exhibited a Morse Cairn sounder, a crystal radio and a spy radio from World War II. And there were local innovations that enabled broadcast of the race, which began on October the 5th, 1895. Post offices along the way housed the telegraph and later telephone systems tracking the riders during the course of the race, and it was reliant on the postal telegraph operators. The first contestants in 1895 were sent off at 3:45 a.m. to take advantage of the full moonlight, so operators had to get up particularly early in order to send telegrams through. All along the route, newspapers published the results of the race as it happened, and I don't think it had happened anywhere else in the world before. And further innovations like the use of cars from 1901 to accompany the races. And there I learnt that the Geelong Radio and Electronics Society meets weekly in a scout hall, having no permanent home, unable to display collections, which are connected to the Geelong Post Office, and the development of telegraphy and telephony, perfect subjects for display in a design centre there. The Geelong Historical Society has just lost its meeting place in a church hall as the church has been sold, and its 2 containers of Geelong's social history, which are possibly the foundation of Geelong's Social History Museum, hopefully in the former post office, are in limbo. And we have the Children's Museum, along the lines of science works, submission to council's have your say consultation. So my question is about as I said, the strategies I've already mentioned. All of them emphasise the importance of listening to your community and the importance of careful investment in social infrastructure. Gender equity is now well catered for in the recreational fields, but not so much in cultural interest areas. And Geelong's developing population needs a place for people with varied interests beyond those already catered for. There are many retirees with a high level of technical skills and administrative skills looking for places where they can contribute to the community. As Jennifer said, they're not just audiences. The social equity draft attachment community places and spaces engagement states 55 plus places and spaces. There was a specific request for places and spaces for this age cohort as this group don't feel they fit the traditional facilities provided and are not considered senior citizens. Rather, they are wanting to age well, and this means staying active and connected to one another. More flexible and welcoming spaces to cater for the growth in this cohort would be welcomed. So, will Council pay attention to its own research above and to its own policies for equity, diversity, creativity and strategic investment in social infrastructure in its deliberations on selling the former post office? Thank you.
Lex, that's a discussion that is continuing, but I think the answer is yes, as we consider the matter. There's a wide range of considerations, as you are well aware, and we are well aware, so that discussion is continuing.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Lex. I'm going to go across to this side of the room. You see a question here? There's a couple. I'll go down the front and I'll go up. This young lady's coming from up the back, so we'll get there. We'll get there, sir. Lady on this side as well who wants to question. Good evening.
I actually did submit this, so I don't know why you... I did it by email, so I'm not sure why you didn't call me. Oh, good.
Council.
Anyway, my name is Tina Thorburn, and I'm here to declare a climate emergency, and I call on the Council to do the same. Never has the phrase, think globally, act locally, had more relevance. Every action or non-action regarding our situation contributes to the climate emergency currently being experienced by the entire planet. We cannot blame the Icelandic people for the Arctic permafrost melting at rates not expected until 2090. That has been a global effort and not one of which to be proud. What we can do, however, is pay attention to and act upon what we are doing within our own municipality. I'm a wildlife rescuer and carer in Geelong, and am networked with other carers here and around the state. Due to the nature of our work, we are confronted daily by the effects of human activity on our wildlife and native flora and bushlands. It is incredibly saddening and increasingly disarming. Our native trees are blossoming much earlier. Our wattles, which traditionally bloom at the end of winter and herald the coming of spring, are already in full bloom and have been for some time. We are seeing fledgling birds earlier than normal, which jeopardises survival rates. Vast areas of bushland inhabited by endangered species are being logged so we can wipe our bums. Our state government is attempting to destroy 800-year-old trees of historical and spiritual significance to the Jabwaran people in order to save road users 3 minutes of time. In our own municipality, swathes of trees have been destroyed to make way for roads and building developments, displacing countless native birds and animals. People of invented heads are attempting to save several 200-year-old trees from developers who wish to destroy them in order to make a swift and convenient profit. Simply planting a tree to replace one that has been destroyed does not fix the problem or make reparation. Many of our tree-dwelling wildlife nest in tree hollows that can take up to 200 years to form. Profit and power has been the guiding principle for our civilisation for far too long. Governments and corporations have spent many research and development dollars to find ways to more efficiently kill the planet in order to increase profits and thereby power, at the low cost of jeopardising all life on the planet. T's have been dotted and I's have been crossed, and if you didn't listen to what I just said too closely, you can continue on your merry way and think all conditions have been accurately met. As the instruments of our own destruction and the destruction of the entire planet, we must be the instruments of our salvation. By declaring a climate emergency, you, our council, will be able to lead the way in educating all in our municipality about the effects of this climate emergency and the steps we can help to take mitigate the problem. This includes businesses, schools, residents and visitors. Education and positive actions are key to saving ourselves. My question is the council willing to step up and help save all of us? The first step of which is to declare a climate emergency.
Your comments and questions this evening, Tina. As has been stated earlier, it is a topic we're discussing and we will continue to do so. In relation to educating the community, this council has been doing so for some time and will continue to do so. Thank you. I'm going to go to a lady. Yep, thank you. I think up the back there. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my question. My name's Leslie James. I've been a resident of Roslyn Road in Highton, around the corner, for 40 years. I've worked in Geelong. I've raised 2 families in the home that I'm in at the moment, and I'm deeply concerned about the decision of the Greater City of Geelong. They've provided a certificate of compliance to the Haven Foundation that now enables them to proceed with this development. And will the officers of the Greater City of Geelong accept liability if any injury is sustained by a resident that is inflicted by a Haven resident or visitor, any damage to or loss of residents' property resulting from any criminal activity by a Haven resident or their visitors, or any injury sustained by a medicated Haven resident, visitor or staff member whilst entering, exiting or crossing the extremely busy Roslyn Road. Also, I've been asked by other residents, if this is a community health development in our area, can we have a safe injecting room put alongside our houses in our own area in the future? These are questions that I'm unable to answer, but perhaps your council could enlighten us, because at the moment we've been completely kept in the dark for too long. And I have been used to living in a safe, harmonious environment, and I want that to continue for my children and my grandchildren. Thank you.
Your comments and questions, and there's no reason that you won't continue to live in a very harmonious community out in Highton. In relation to Council's liability, I don't know that Council would be liable for the actions of residents from Haven Foundation. I think that would lie within, but that's not to say that Council doesn't take community safety seriously, because it does. As has been said earlier, this is a decision that was not within Council's jurisdiction to make, but we will be discussing this further this evening as to what we can do about it in relation to lobbying the Minister in relation to the decision that has been made in relation to the Haven Foundation. Thank you. This gentleman down the front, thank you. And then we'll get across the other side, and I think we're getting close.
My name's Lou Baker. I'm here representing Geelong Interchurch Social Justice Network. My question relates to poker machines. Poker machines cause a lot of harm to our community, and it's estimated Geelong community loses 110 million on these machines each year, which is bad for both people and local business. I believe Council is aware of this, and that in fact Council recently spent something like $30,000 on legal fees to formally oppose the recent application by White Eagle House for licences for 43 poker machines to add to the 35 that they already operated. A remarkable turn of events. Council won the case before the Victorian Gaming and Liquor Commission, and I believe this was about only the second time in the history of the Commission that such a loss had happened. the Geelong Interchurch Social Justice Network also oppose the granting of these licences and would like to thank Council for fighting the case. However, my understanding is that these licences are now available for another business in Geelong area to apply for. Clearly, we believe there is a need for a change in the legislation so that when an application like the White Eagle House application is lost, that the machines in question are permanently retired from circulation and can't be made available for another applicant. That would that would then mean fewer pokies in circulation over time and less money needed for legal assistance to defeat further applications. The question is, could Council or would Council be willing to write to other local government councils and the state government supporting such a change to the current legislation?
Thank you for your questions and comments this evening. As has been well documented, this council has been fighting very hard against poker machines in our community and recognises the issues that they do present. It has to be noted that the White Eagle House decision has been appealed, so we're still waiting for that to come back. It's a difficult one. Again, Council has limited powers to fight on this particular issue, but can certainly lobby government to change some of their policy in relation to poker machines and where they may be placed in and around our region and what that number might look like. Ideally, I think your comment before about should poker machines be relinquished in a certain area, then they don't get to bob up somewhere else as such. So I think that's a very valid comment to make, and I think that's something we may be able to have some discussion on. Councillor Rakin.
Too, that maybe the Interfaith Justice Network needs to actually write to the Geelong Football Club, because it's actually their poker machines, and the Geelong Football Club could actually hand back those licences, but the Geelong Football Club's actually chosen to sell those licences. So as the current licensee, they can hand them back to the state government and to the regulatory authority, but they've chosen not to. They've actually run a very strong campaign saying that they are anti-gambling, but they certainly haven't helped the Geelong community by making that the 102 poker machines that they did have a licence for, they're trying to sell them to the broader community in Geelong. So I'd actually like you to take your questions also to the Geelong Football Club about what responsibility they are actually undertaking in terms of the impact that the machines that they're no longer operating, but they're wanting a commercial return from by selling them to other parts of the Geelong community.
Does Council have any leverage over the football club? From what you're saying, no. But,
so no more than the community as such in lobbying the club and others in relation to if they hold particular poker machine licences, if they choose to relinquish those licences, our sort of request is that those licences are handed in and not passed on as such. I think is the point that we're looking to try and get across. So, but look, I don't think anyone. Well, it's not true. There are many in the community who use poker machines. They are a legal activity, but we also understand that there are consequences as a result of that.
We'll certainly do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other questions after this gentleman here?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, my name's Alistair McComb. I live in Buckencourt, Highton, just off St Catherine's Drive, up the top end of Roslyn Road. I don't want to sound lighthearted on this, but in relation to what's happening with the Haven Foundation, for the last probably couple of months, I can honestly say that for all the reasons that are going on up there, I've overdosed on angry pills. But I just want to make the council aware, and I've only been told this by a neighbour in the last day or so. He said that Barwon Health cannot guarantee the safety of their staff at the Swanson Centre. And to me, and I plead with the council here, seriously, if that is the case in these mental health things, we do need mental health. I don't deny it. We do need a facility for it. But you don't go and put something like this in the middle of an established, very good community up the top end of Highton there, in Roslyn Road, without having serious consideration for what can happen in a precinct that schools hundreds and hundreds of children. And please, what you said before, Bruce, was when we asked the question on liability. For heaven's sake, who is going to have the blood on their hands after the first incident? Now, God only help me, that never happens. But who is going to be guilty? We cannot keep passing the buck and keep saying, I'm not liable, I'm not liable. Someone has got to be. Now, whether it's the minister or whoever, I don't know. But please, bloody, get behind us and support us in our concerns of this, because yes, Geelong does need this mental health facility, but places for it. You don't slam it straight in the middle of an established community. Thanks, mate.
Appreciate your comments this evening. If there's no further questions or comments, we'll continue with the meeting, and thank you all for coming along for question time. Right, where am I? Are there any submissions, any petitions rather, this evening? None to be presented? All right. Thank you. I'm going to pass over to our Junior Council Mayor, Josie Horn, who's joined us this evening. A youth council came into existence earlier this year, and as a result, Josie was selected the mayor, the first mayor of the Junior Council. So welcome, Josie, and look forward to your message this evening. So nice and loud.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this land, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, as well as acknowledging all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this evening. Good evening, Mayor Bruce Harwood, Greater Geelong councillors and directors, youth councillors and the gallery. My name is Josie Horn. I'm the Junior Mayor for the Greater City of Geelong, and I will outline what the Youth Council has achieved since my last presentation to Council on the 28th of May. I will explain our attendance at the Geelong Youth Awards, at drop-in groups around Geelong, providing feedback on the new civil precinct, as well as further information about my fellow youth councillors, many of whom are present this evening. Finally, I will outline our goals for the next 2 months and the date of my next presentation to Council. We were privileged to be given the difficult task of judging the Geelong Youth Awards, which were held on Friday the 7th of June. There were 7 award categories, emphasising the many ways in which young people contribute to our community and how they all need to be celebrated for their admirable efforts. It was such a hard task for us all because of the selflessness and the huge impact each of the nominees gave to both their immediate and wider communities. The stories of hope and kindness inspired us all to make them proud and make the most of the influence we have. Furthermore, members of the Youth Council were present at the Geelong Youth Awards night. We talked with many of the applicants, got involved with some filming and helped present the certificates to all nominees. Unsurprisingly, it was a great night of laughter and celebration of the city's young people. Everyone was so supportive, especially our very own Youth Councillor Logan, who cheered for every single nominee, regardless of whether they were present or not. I know that all youth councillors were so grateful to be in that room with like-minded youth, who weren't only determined to make a difference, but who have already made that positive change. The young people we met are Geelong's future, and we are still in awe of our peers' achievements, humility and graciousness, and we will use their spirit as kindling for the progress we are excited to make. We have also been approached by the City of Greater Geelong to provide youth feedback on the new civil precinct, and we have been involved in many activities which highlight what the young people's priorities are and what elements of the precinct young people view as vital. We were happy to take part and advocate for youth's view on one of the most important public spaces, as it will be a place many of us will use for years to come. Some of our priorities included making it a safe space for everyone, being an environmentally friendly building with minimal carbon emissions, and being a place in which ideas were generated and inspired, with the City Hall still remaining today as a place where those ideas are going to be cemented. Furthermore, I'd love to take this opportunity to allude to you what my fellow youth councillors want to achieve in their roles and a bit about themselves. Although I may be the person presenting to Council, I would like to emphasise the massive amount of work every member of the Youth Council does to make everything we do happen. By introducing each member, I hope the community will be more aware of the dedication that they constantly display, because they all deserve it. If all youth councillors present tonight could stand as I quote them and face councillors, then the gallery. Unfortunately, we have some apologies this evening. From the Windermere ward, Logan Chandler and Carmen McLeod. From the Kidini ward, Emilia Charleston. From the Brownboo ward, Jesse Pappalardo, Maddie Pisotsky and Lulu Josk. And from the Bellarine ward, Jager Fawcett. Unfortunately, not many of us could be here, and we're sorry for that, but I will read out everyone's quotes because I believe it's important. First, from the Windermere ward, Logan Chandler, Carmen McLeod and Erin Robertson. Logan is an aspiring leader who plans to change the way people view mental health through encouraging his peers to make their own adaptations to their life. He wants to see the youth of Geelong become more active in areas they care about, and being a youth councillor gives Logan the encouragement to transform into who he aspires to be. From the same ward, Carmen is dedicated to combating the issue of youth mental health by working to reduce the stigma and create pathways for young people to seek services easily. She is a strong and passionate leader who constantly advocates for the needs of those around her. Erin is a respectful and kind leader to all her peers and is looking forward to collaborating with other young people to make change. She's part of the environment portfolio and aims to work with young people around Geelong to make them aware of easy changes they can make to lessen their carbon footprint. Next. Next, we have the Kidini Award with Emilia Charleston, Georgia Delaney and Lainey Cartledge. Emilia's goal is to work constructively with her fellow youth councillors to host and run a beneficial, fun and interactive youth summit, as well as making sure young people feel comfortable and safe in our city. She hopes to work alongside youth from around Geelong and work to develop a more safe, healthy and sustainable city for the future. Georgia is open-minded and optimistic about change. She is part of the Youth Summit portfolio and hopes to host an engaging and meaningful event that is inclusive to all, and one that provides people with new skills and opportunities. Lainey wants to create change and to be a representation of all people, in particular Geelong's youth. As a youth councillor, Lainey wants to see positive change, especially within her portfolio area of community safety and homelessness. Next, from the Brownboo ward, we have Jesse Pappalardo, Matty Pisotsky and Lulu Joski. Jessie is concerned with young people's vulnerability to mental health issues due to cyberbullying and the stigma that still surrounds some illnesses. As a youth councillor, he is kind and looks forward to combating these issues to make positive difference. Matty is an open-minded leader who is always respectful of others' opinions, even if they differ from his own. He is excited to go out and meet other young people around Geelong and have conversations with them about the environment and how both the City of Greater Geelong and each individual that makes it up can make a difference. Still in Brownbill, Lulu is concerned with helping out young people who need it most, and she aims to help Geelong's young people who are vulnerable to homelessness. She is a kind and thoughtful leader who is passionate about making change to ensure that everyone has a safe and warm place to live in Geelong. From the Bellarine ward, we have Jager Fawcett, Elkin Wittenberg and myself. Jager describes himself as a leader who is simply someone who gets involved in any way possible and loves to help out whenever he can. He finds it extremely rewarding to be part of the Youth Council and aims to help create and run a successful youth summit for Geelong's youth to enjoy and look forward to for years to come. Elkin is particularly passionate about the environment and aspires to give the youth more ways they can conscientiously improve the environment where they live. She is approachable and open leader and would like to help find a way to empower her peers to break out of the idea of achieving things when they're older by encouraging them to see that they can start making that change now. We are all so motivated about making real change and we are so excited to do so. All of us bring different experiences, views and values to the Youth Council, and this difference is celebrated because we all know that this diversity makes us stronger. This diversity makes our group thrive. Finally, members from each ward are going to attend a drop-in youth group in the coming weeks to connect with young people on a grassroots level in order to become a more reliable, representative and respected youth council. This will occur soon. Thus, I will present a detailed report on our experiences in my next presentation to Council. On to our priorities for the next 2 months. The Youth Council of Geelong is focused on collaborating with more young people to gain their views on our portfolio areas in the next 2 months, in particular organising the Geelong Youth Summit. From these interactions, we will then take the necessary steps to propose changes or projects which we view are needed for young people so that they can reach their potential. We will also be dedicated to organising the Youth Summit, including planning its location, focus and activities. To conclude, the Geelong Youth Council has voted for the winners of the Youth Awards and attended the presentation night, which was a great success. We are an empathetic, dedicated and driven group of young people who are passionate about making a difference in this greater city of Geelong. For the next 2 months, we will continue to work on our portfolio areas, as well as meeting with more young people to gain essential feedback. My next report to Council will be on Tuesday, the 24th of September, with another update on our work, achievements and potential proposals we may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. And I think typically displaying a good trait of a leader where she doesn't necessarily talk about herself but talks about her group and the council group, so which I guess is very typical of Josie and one of the reasons that she was elected the mayor. But I can honestly say there were a number of the junior council could have been in the role of mayor, but Josie was selected. But again, thank you, Josie, and it's always a pleasure to have you in here. And yes, you can return to that seat if you wish to.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josie. Our first item this evening.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's just a pity that with so many climate concerns with our junior council, it's a pity the climate change people left. That would have been good for them to see and hear what the junior council what they're about. So that's a pity.
Watch the replay, Councillor Nelson, and catch up. Our first item tonight is the Youth Council report, the second quarter 2018. I'll be moving and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. As we've heard from our junior mayor, quite an extensive report about their engagement, but just a couple of quick points to further, I guess, illuminate what they are doing. We recently had ward meetings with our junior council, and again, it was the insight we got from our junior councillors is quite fantastic. I guess ideas that we think we know a bit about, but we get a much greater perspective from our youth councillors. And they give our community confidence that we value our youth, and it's they're not only heard, but they're acted upon, and I think that's coming through. And another thing I think they've been learning is they have to face the exposure to the community as being a junior councillor. And so to be here this evening, I guess, would give them a good idea of the real experience of that. And we hope that that also goes to their education of being a junior councillor and what that means to be accountable to the community and to answer to the community. And I'm hoping in time when our junior council go on to become further leaders in the community, whether that's in government or in business or in whatever it might be, that this particular education they get at the moment stands them in good stead. And I think thus far they've been demonstrating all the attributes of significant future leaders. So thank you. Councillor Mason?
May I just add a couple of things, Mr Mayor?
Just before you do, I'm going to go to Councillor Grisbeck, who seconded the motion, then I'll come across. Thank you. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think that was a fantastic report, and congratulations on the report. I love the attendance at the drop-in centres. I think that that's a really interesting way to connect with young people, and I think that's reflective of how we are as councillors to actually go out to our communities. It's exactly the same. So I think that the Youth Mayor has articulated the report very well, and I've got nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to congratulate our junior mayor on her excellent speech, and I'm very proud that she happens to come from the Bellarine and that she's setting the Bellarine Council as a wonderful example. Indeed, it's very interesting, the example that the youth councillors have set, in that their very interests of mental health, homelessness, community safety and the environment are issues we are discussing tonight. And we have great depth now developing in our community, starting with our youth, with these issues. In addition, I'd like to emphasise too what the Mayor said a moment ago about the meeting through the wards, and it was at my pleasure with Councillor Sullivan to join in a mentoring program with our Bellarine youth councillors, as all the other councillors engaged in their wards. And I look forward very much to engaging further through the council offices with our youth councillors and this mentoring program. Thank you.
Councillor Mason. Others to speak? Thank you, Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I just want to make a few comments. They're noisy, they're vibrant, and they create a huge commotion. And I actually think it's fantastic having all those things occurring in City Hall. And that's exactly what you want young people to actually be doing. And we want that as councillors to be exposed to that on such a regular basis. And we are getting that from the Youth Council. What you've actually heard in Josie's report on behalf of all the elected youth councillors is that really they actually care so much about their fellow Geelong citizens, and they also care about the environment. So I actually just want to endorse what all the other councillors have said as well too. Thank you so much to our youth councillors, and thank you for being great citizens of Geelong and participating in this process, because I actually think it's one of the great initiatives that this particular council has been part of, was to introduce the Youth Council. So keep on doing what you're doing, and keep on being young people, and keep on bringing all that noise, vibrance and commotion to the city great of Geelong. Thank you.
Aiken. Any other comments to be made? If not, I'll close with thanking Blake, who's here this evening from Council, and also, I'm not too sure if Hinga's here, but a couple of council officers who work very closely with our junior council and do a wonderful job. And perhaps they need to, I'm not too sure if they keep them in check, I don't think that's required, but they certainly work very closely with them, which is highly appreciated. And I think it's worth noting that, I think as was touched on, they're going to be organising a youth summit in the near future, so we look forward to what that will bring to us as a community and us as a council. So continue the good work, and we look forward to the future with you. So thank you. I put the recommendation to the vote of their report. So those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you again. Our second item is the draft social infrastructure planning and investment policy. Moved Councillor Aiken and seconded Councillor Manane. Thank you, Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. This is actually probably one of the most significant documents that's actually come before council in the life of this particular council in the last, how long we've been around for? 20 months, I think, as a council. And in fact, this document's been developed by the officers for over 2 years. In fact, it was this particular document that stalled the administrator's ambition to actually close the libraries in the Geelong region because this document wasn't completed. And what we're doing tonight is actually putting the draft social infrastructure and planning investment policy out for public consultation. And essentially what this policy is attempting to do is to set a framework at which council makes its decisions about infrastructure and services for the next 12 years until 2031 and contribute towards that document. So it's actually quite a significant piece of policy development to show the community a framework in which how we will make our decisions as a council group in allocation of the limited resources that we have and how we respond to the community's wishes and needs. And to just give you an idea of the breadth, like council has 126 services, which you could probably say 110 of them relate to social infrastructure and service delivery that we do have. But just to give you an idea of the magnitude of service delivery and infrastructure, this is a list of all the areas that are covered by social infrastructure and some of the engagement that has been undertaken in the last 2 years. It covers arts and culture. It covers museums. It covers senior citizens. It covers libraries. It covers our heritage spaces. It covers our indoor use spaces. It includes our sports clubhouses. It includes our outdoor sporting facilities in terms of our fields and courts. It includes our outdoor youth spaces, which relates to our skating and other facilities associated. It includes all our parks and gardens space that we have within, and open space that we have within the city of Greater Geelong. It includes all our playgrounds and our play spaces. It includes all our walking tracks and our bicycle tracks and trails. It includes all our indoor facilities, whether they are basketball, netball or archery. In fact, we have archery facilities in Geelong as well too. It includes all our aquatic and leisure facilities. It includes all our golf facilities. It includes all our kindergartens and our preschools. It includes all our childcare facilities. It includes all our maternal child health facilities and includes all our neighbourhood houses. And there's probably a number of other service delivery infrastructure and service activities that the council have that I haven't included. But what this document tries to do is actually put into a framework of how we will be fair and open and transparent in delivering our allocation and our services as a council going forward in the future. And so it is a significant piece of policy development, and it does require public consultation in terms of, is this the correct framework for us to actually make our decisions going forward? One of the significant outcomes of the document is that it actually says council should look for partnership models in delivering services and delivering infrastructure in the local community of Geelong. And if you actually listen to the number of questions that we received tonight, it's actually really the community saying to us, how do they partner with the City of Greater Geelong to fulfil their ambitions over a number of different areas of responsibility? Well, this document gives us a bit of a framework of how we can actually work towards that. And I encourage all councillors to read the document. I thank the officers that have been involved in this development of this, because I said it's been 2 years in its process and an extensive engagement with the community to get to the point where we are now. So the officers certainly do need congratulations for what they have created up until this point of time, in particular led by Robin Stevens in her former role and her current role as director, and also in particular Ian Hicks, this has been quite a personal passion of his as well too. It is more, the City of Melbourne was one of the first leaders that established social infrastructure frameworks and plans, but this document actually takes it to an even grander scale than what the City of Melbourne has in place for how you create a framework of partnership and make decisions as a council in the allocation about your investment and services. So I look forward to the community getting an opportunity to have an understanding of what it is. It is very elaborate, it is different, but it gives us an opportunity as councillors to engage with our community and work out how we do allocate our limited resources that we have.
Councillor Aiken. Councillor Manane. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just endorse the comments from Councillor Aiken. This is a very important piece of work, and there's already been fairly extensive consultation with different community groups and organisations, obviously, to put the report together. The report itself does show that our council officers do have a very good understanding of their community, and in fact a number of us councillors have been invited to at least 4 meetings to progressively help work with the officers on it, and during those meetings we've witnessed the great work of our council officers. And I think this further consultation with the community will add considerably to the report, or has the capacity to add considerably to the report. And so the list of principles that are already articulated there, and the future projects that will be required for this expanding city of ours will hopefully come to fruition. Of course, in this field there's never ever enough money, because, as I said, we are a growing city, and there is so much requirement in our city in this space. My fear is, of course, that whether it be national budgets, state budgets or our own budgets, we'll continue to have to play a bit of catch-up, especially because of the growth of our city. I hesitate to mention that in the report there is a section that refers to social equity, and it is only one part of the report, but unfortunately, as we all know and understand, social equity is broken in this country. Whether you look nationally, internationally or here in Geelong itself, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is just widening, and alarmingly it's manifesting itself in many different ways. And we all know them: homelessness, food shortage, social housing, family violence, mental health, drug and alcohol, etc. And it is part of the social planning and investment role of council to do what we can here in the city of Geelong. We can't solve the problems of the world, but we can certainly make an effort to solve the problems that we have. And of course, the annual budget that is passed down through the levels of government will provide this industry with the normal level of support, and as a result, we will continue to play catch-up. We really do need to get into the prevention game and then get in front to make sure that we meet the requirements in this area. I intend to make some further comments about this in future meetings, but I am heartened to see that it is part of what we're planning to deal with these matters, and we already have a few projects underway. And I believe the committee involved, led by councillors, is already addressing some of these issues. We have been successful in the past advocating for additional resources to help build things in our city, whether you look at the convention centre or the Green Spine or Kidini Park, the Yacht Club, the Art Gallery, etc. We need to get equally as efficient in lobbying for additional funds to make sure that the social infrastructure of this city is kept up to date. So I intend to, as part of my role as a councillor, to keep pushing this interest and see if we can add some meat on the bone and bring to life the motives that are in this report that we have in front of us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other councillors to make comment? If not at this stage, I'll go back to Councillor Aiken to close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, thank you, Councillor Pat. The reality is the only way we're going to address inequality in our community is targeted response, and that's certainly what Councillor Manane was actually reminding us. The social infrastructure plan does talk about, we do have a responsibility to that, and certainly this council, I believe in decisions it's made up to date and decisions we'll make in the future, it does wish to address social inequity that exists in our community. One officer that I didn't mention that actually is also here tonight is Kristen Davies, is also here tonight as well too. This has been a very important project for her in terms of the delivery and development and the engagement process too. So it was remiss of me not to mention her name earlier on tonight as well too. So thank you for the work that you've done as well too in this project on behalf of the councillors. So we now wait for, if it is endorsed, for public consultation and then come back to us to be adopted. And I'm sure the team will be very pleased when it reaches that stage. Yeah.
Councillor Aiken, I put the recommendation of the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Item 3 is the Golf Facility Strategy, Stage 1, existing leased courses. Moved Councillor Aiken and seconded Councillor Manane. Thank you, Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, this document is also significant because it actually changes the relationship of how council actually delivers golfing facilities in the Geelong community. We have a mixed model, and it was actually presented to us that we should have a uniform and consistent model about how we engage with provision of golfing facilities in the Geelong region. After the public consultation of this document, it has been agreed that both East Geelong and Clifton Springs golf clubs are ready for club management models, but Lara and Queen's Park are not ready to adopt those models. And the report tonight actually does just essentially say to us we should be entering into a relationship with East Geelong and Clifton Springs and provide golf management just as we do with Barwon Valley and Ocean Grove under the club-based management models. Lara and Queen's Park have both asked us for additional time, and both of them also have got significant questions that they wish to resolve with the council in terms of what does club-based management actually mean to them. The officers have responded to that in the sense that they are saying tonight that we will continue to work with both the Lara and Queen's Park golf clubs to try to find an outcome that's suitable for them to transition to a club-based management model. I look forward to the officers bringing future reports back to us to say that they have been able to reach a resolution with both Lara and Queen's Park to put it within the policy framework that Council has endorsed. On a personal level, I do know that the Lara Golf Club still has a number of concerns that they wish to have addressed before they're prepared to actually adopt this project and principle of operating for their facility. And a lot of those questions they have channelled to Councillor Gresbeck and myself, and they are worthy of the response that the officers have presented tonight, saying that we do need to give them more time and we do need to properly try to assess the questions that both Lara and Queen's Park have.
Councillor Manane.
Councillor Aiken covered it pretty well. The consultation that we carried, that we discovered that actually 4 of the 7 golf clubs are actually being managed sustainably and at no cost to council, and 2 of those were these 2 clubs in question, Clifton Springs and East Geelong. So when we renew their leases, we want to make sure we renew them in a way that's fair and equitable and on a comparison basis to what we see the future leasing arrangements will be for all of these clubs that are under the new club-based management model. And I think we can work with Lara and Queen's Park to come up with a successful outcome. Good work here by Officer Ian Hicks and his team, and I forget the other gentleman's name, to bring this together, because it was a little bit of an area which there was a fair gap between the different clubs, and bringing it together is providing some good equity across the sport, and hopefully going forward will be a much better area for council.
No. Any other councillors may comment? Thank you, Councillor Contel.
Brief comment. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm really pleased with some of the work that the officers have done here. Early in our term of this council, particularly East Geelong Golf Club, approached the Brownbill Ward councillors and indicated some of the challenges that they were having with sustaining their operations. And we know that that's not foreign to other organisations as well, and we'll be talking about some of those others in other reports throughout the evening. But to build an engaging community, we need all community members to be prospering, and some of those are sporting, some of them are arts and culture, some of them are diverse communities. Here with this report, at least we are endorsing officers to reduce the rental arrangements for East Geelong Golf Course and Club and Clifton Springs. East Geelong, as I said, is of particular interest to myself, being a Brownbill Ward councillor, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to do something there to help with their sustainability into the future.
Any other comments to be made? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Nelson.
I was just looking to see if in here said how many people play golf in our municipality. I can't put my eye on it just at this point in time, but I know it's over 100,000. I think it's over 100,000 people yet. We've only got 9 submissions over 7 golf courses, which was pretty disappointing. And one person who doesn't even live in the municipality took it upon themselves to have a go at Geelong Council. So I'd like to have a chat with that person. If they would like to send me an email, that'd be great. I'd love to have a chat with them. Submission number 4 was pretty disappointing. But certainly from a Kidini Award perspective, Queen's Park certainly needs more time. They've got a few issues down there with regard to the course being run by council. You've got a pro golf person in there. You've got the catering that's run by a different company with different people, and some of their staff that are on council on the course go to another course as well. So it's quite difficult just to go to one model. So they certainly need more time down there. It's the most used course in Geelong, and certainly they need more time. So that's good that the council is letting them do that. But I also wanted to thank, and now I've just forgotten off the top of my head. Sorry. Malcolm Coon, sorry. I looked down in the gallery, I don't see him out there, but thank you to Malcolm Coon for all his hard work. He takes my phone call every time I ring him, and if he doesn't, he gets back to me that day. So good on Malcolm, because I call him quite constantly because of the issues down at Queen's Park. So thank you to Malcolm Coon. That's all, Mr Mayor.
Nelson, if there's no further comments, I'll go back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, just wish to respond to Councillor Nelson. Look, please don't suggest that the low numbers is poor engagement. In fact, there's been absolutely fantastic engagement with the golf, the individual golf clubs, and in fact that engagement has probably set a high mark of how the council should actually be engaged with especially significant transition, and that's been reflected where the officers have actually recommended a 2-stage approach, those that were ready and those that aren't ready. And those that aren't ready, we do need to do significant more talking with them about how we can actually fulfil our aim. And the aim of what council is attempting to do is ultimately that our public golf courses are in a very competitive and crowded sport and leisure market, and we're trying to find a sustainable model that actually ensures that golfing continues in the community in Geelong, and also significant public access is available to golf when they wish to participate in it. And some of the really encouraging things that came out of this report was that a lot of our golf clubs under council management were failing in attracting women, attracting families and attracting younger people to golf, and that was under council management. So, and they are actually principles that we have about trying to have diversity of participation in sport and also encourage wider participation in our community. And this model of a club-based management system seems to be the most appropriate manner to try to encourage more females to play golf, encourage families and also younger people to participate in what is significant public open space, the number of golf courses that we have under our control in the city of Greater Geelong.
Councillor Aiken, I put the recommendation to the vote on that item. Those in favour, those against, that is carried. Thank you. Item 4 is the Community Events Funding Allocation to Diversitat, sponsor of the Paco Festa 2020 to 2022.
I might wish to move an amendment, please.
Okay, so we have a mover for an amendment. Councillor Grisbeck.
So if we were to say the 7.2 to make it 100,000 and 7.3 to make it 100,000.
For that particular, thank you. Councillor Contell, so Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge some of the members of the Diversitat family in the room, and I did see Augustino there before. I think he's hi, Augustino, and I saw Sophia Shen as well up the back there. So welcome to all the members from the Diversitat community here to hear our item tonight. Council's got an objective of putting the community first, to invest in the community and all the communities within our region. So this amendment is to seek an increase of the amount of money to $100,000 per year for each year for the next 3 years to support Paco Festa. Paco Festa is a fabulous showcase to our cultural diversity. This parade has had some 70 entries last year, which provides a powerful message to that multiculturalism is alive and well and living in Geelong. I'm not trying to tell you the reason why we will invest in the festival, because I think we all identify that the festival, what it does and what it proves to Geelong. This report identifies that this is a non-for-profit organisation which sets the benchmark for integrating multicultural communities in a single event. As the chair of the MAPAC, which is the Multicultural Advisory Action Plan, I've been working with this community for the past 2 years in this capacity, and my fellow councillor Eddie Contell in the previous councils has held that portfolio for many years. The MAP, which we call the Multicultural Action Plan 2018 to 2022, aims to do many things, but 2 of them would be increase our multicultural communities' participation, highlighting the benefits of diversity and social inclusion. And one of the other ones, we have an action from this plan, is to increase the community understanding of the contributions made to the city by the called community, and this festival does this. Diversitat is one of the main providers of services to these communities, especially refugees, as we spoke about before. This event is a cultural community event. It is free to the community. It has been going for 37 years, from what I understand, and we have provided letters of support to Diversitat in order for them to obtain the state government funding for $150,000 by 3. Let's put our funding where our community benefits the most. The extra $30,000 of additional risk because of the additional risk requirements and personnel to assist in the risk management plans that are due to the requirements of an outdoor festival. The state government has even recognised these needs by providing extra funds themselves. I think I'll leave it there and cover the rest in the closing, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'm very pleased to support and second this report, and I thank Councillor Grisbeck for the amendment. As we all know, the Paco Festa is an iconic event here in Geelong. It is great to see the community from Diversitat and our multicultural communities here tonight. I sort of quickly glared through the crowd and I could certainly spot Ukrainians, Italians, Karenis, Dutch, Chinese, Indonesian, Macedonians, and even a Slovenian somewhere in amongst them. So great to see him. Great to see Luisa Lafanera here, who heads up Paco Festa, has been iconic with that event for a long time. It's very easy for us to sit here and just think about tonight's report being Paco Festa and being an event, but the event is so much more, and it's part of the strategy that Diversitat has to support our diverse and multicultural communities. There was a question about refugees here tonight and the work that Diversitat and Council does in that space. You've got to remember this is just a vehicle to be able to provide support to diverse communities. And we all know that the diverse communities are the fabric of what makes Geelong such a wonderful place to live, such a wonderful place to build families, to socialise, to work and to invest in. And our diverse communities have been contributing for decades and decades in so many ways, and our new and emerging communities now that are coming to Geelong, the Afghan and the Karen and the Karini and the likes, and in so many ways, whether it be their dance, their song, their economic and financial contribution, their voluntary efforts, their sporting feats, their political contribution, and that's what makes us such a great place to be. But to do that, to continue to be able to see us prosper in Geelong as a diverse community, takes some investment, and that's what we're asking Council to do today: is to invest in Geelong and to invest in our diverse community. Unlike normal investments, where you're not sure what the outcome will be, with Paco Festa we know what some of the outcome will be. It's proven, as Councillor Grisbeck has said, for some 37 years. It'll ensure that we have a more engaged community, a more harmonious and safe community. We know that it will provide positive economic impact to our community of greater than some $6 million, and also create employment opportunities through the small businesses that it supports, not only with the supplying of the stalls that the small communities run, but also the small businesses in and around Geelong West at that period of time. And so I really encourage our councillors not to think about tonight's investment in an event, but more so in the future sustainability of this great diverse region and city that we have. And whilst we look globally, and even maybe not so far, at communities in and around Australia, but also worldwide, where there's so much conflict and fighting, and yet what we have here in Geelong, because of not only Paco Festa, and not only because of our multicultural communities, but because of our engagement in those initiatives, we have a community that is actually growing in love, not growing apart in conflict. So, councillors, this is an opportunity for us to continue to support a great initiative. Not sure if you're aware, but in Diversitat also lies the Geelong Ethnic Communities Council, with some 51 different nationalities that are represented in that council. And so, we are representing a broad and wide range. And in doing so, in supporting this initiative tonight and this 3-year funding investment, when you go down to Paco Festa and eat your chavapi at the next event, with the stalls there selling all sorts of culinary wonders, you'll be able to be proud that you were part of its sustainability and its future.
Councillor Contel, any other councillors to make comment? Councillor Manane?
I also would like to support Paco Festa. I think there's a great amount of value and worth that can come out of these sorts of events. I think Councillor Gontel's comment that it's more than just an event; it's actually a community that sits behind it. And I think part of the discussion that we've had of recent times is to try and build these sorts of events in all of the community population centres we have across our region. And I think we have, the other night I said at least 20 that you could readily identify. You know, we've put aside, I think it's $300,000 to cater, of $200,000 to cater for those 20 population centres. And hopefully one day they will also be able to boast, if that's the word, or enjoy a Paco Festa in their own community. The reality is that will create an economic challenge for us to be able to provide a significant amount of money of the ilk that we have here to all of those communities. They all are of equal importance, and hopefully they will all deliver the sort of benefits that Paco Festa does. And when I looked at the original proposal of 80,000, I thought to myself initially that we ought to be trimming that back on a say a $5,000 to $10,000 reduction on an annual basis, on the understanding that this is an event that's been going for 37 years. It is well established and has a great footprint, and therefore at time would be able to be drawing less on the resources of council, and we'd be able to use some of those monies to build similar events in other communities. But I actually thought to myself, you know, they came to us last year with a last-minute call for additional funds, which we agreed to do because they had some last-minute challenges. And I'm feeling a little bit challenged about this whole issue because they came to us originally asking this time for $150,000. Now we're asking for $100,000. I just wonder whether or not we should be getting some independent assessment of what's happening here, because we are going to sign up for another $300,000 here, having recently put $300,000 or $400,000 in recent times. And it doesn't seem really clear that this budget and this call, in fact, it concerns me, and it probably concerns all involved, including those who are the strongest supporters of the festival. You know, does there need to be some independent assessment done here to make sure that this great festival remains and lasts for another 37 years? Because that's what we all want. In fact, we'd love to see it grow beyond what it is. So I'd come to the conclusion that I was going to vote for the 3 years at 82,000 because of my strong belief in what it actually provides to the community and how important it is. I guess it's a bit of a showpiece, I guess, for other communities to aim at. I'm now a little bit concerned with the uncertainty of whether they need 150 or 100 or what is it? That do they really have an operating budget that gives us the confidence that the next 37 years are assured? So I'm a little bit reluctant to tick off on this without some assessment and some reassurance that all this is on really good footing and that we know that the future of this event is assured for longer than another 37 years. So I don't know whether we need to pass another amendment to the amendment and ask for an assessment and some comfort that this is on sound footing going forward, but it's certainly a concern that I have.
No? Any other comments to be made?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too have been grappling with this problem, and I'm not sure exactly what some of the implications are now listening to Councillor Murnane. I've been to the Paco Festa numerous times and I'm extremely excited by it. I think it's a wonderful demonstration of social cohesion. It's wonderful that we have, I don't know how many nationalities we have in this community, is it 59 or more? But this provides so much cohesion. It's really a substantial benefit to our social fabric as well as to our economic fabric. It worries me that that we're perhaps basing putting all of our eggs in the one basket. In diversity lies strength. That's true. In the diversity of our community, so does diversity of community activities. And I wonder if we take away $54,000 for the next 3 years from Peter and pay Paco Festa, that we are decreasing our diversity. So I think I can see arguments on both footings. I understand that Councillor Contell has spent many years with this portfolio in the past, and also Councillor Grisbeck now. I look forward to at some stage myself taking a more active interest with this portfolio. And in this light, if we have to decide tonight, I'm inclined to support the motion or the amendment for the extra $18,000, but I do see serious questions that we have to follow up on, and we do need to consider the long-term sustainability of this festival, which is such a great contribution to our society.
Councillor Mason, any other comments to be made? Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I actually think personally we should be actually giving him the 150,000, but I'm prepared to support the 100,000 that's actually been put up as amendment tonight. Look, I actually support the argument that Councillor Contell has made, in that I actually don't see this as an event at all, and I'm not making an assessment of this as an event. The world and our harmony in the world is actually under significant threat because of nationalist attitudes. We see this in Brexit and we see this in Trump. And it's not just rhetoric, but they're actually telling everybody, you've got to look after yourself, don't worry about anybody else, don't open up your society or your benefits or your freedoms that you have, you've got to look after yourself. And don't worry about the harmony, diversity, inclusion, and the fact that we're actually all one human race. You've actually got to look after yourself. And I don't look at the Paco Festa as an event at all. I see the Paco Festa as our most significant strategic partnership and relationship that we have with our community to actually protect the harmony, the diversity and the inclusion that we have in Geelong. I do not see any other more public example of that than the Paco Festa. And I actually think that this council should, as a minimum, always be matching what the state government is investing into that harmony, diversity and inclusion. And as a consequence, personally, I believe we probably should be matching the state's government's 3-year commitment and the 150,000 to show that this council has the same level of financial relationship with its responsibilities about its multicultural community. But we've got a motion that actually is different to the officer's recommendation, and it is about $100,000, so I actually do support that $100,000. And I think part of the reason why we all love Geelong is because of what the multicultural community has brought to Geelong. And this council shouldn't be just looking at this as another event or another opportunity to withdraw its relationship with this community. In fact, we should be elevating the multicultural community to the pedestal it deserves as one of the most significant parts of our community that we want to celebrate and be part of. And as a consequence, I will support the 100,000 that's been presented to us tonight.
Mr. Aiken. Other comments? Councillor Nelson.
I think everyone else has had a say. I better say something, Mr. Mayor. Or, I certainly agree with most things that have been said tonight with regard to Paco Festa. I come from a migrant background, just as some other councillors here do. So I do want to acknowledge. I think it was it Fred? Was the Dutch person? So Hi to the Dutch people there. It was good when Aldi had their specials last week. That was good. I got some Dutch biscuits. So that was good. But more seriously, I think if we keep spending the same money the state government puts in things, we'll go broke pretty quick. That's the problem with council. You soon run out of spending other people's money. However, I do believe we should support Paco Festa. If it's for 100,000, it's 100,000. I do agree with Councillor Mason that we probably should have a look at their books because they seem to spend every last dollar and cent. That concerns me. I think we need to have a look at their books a bit closer. That's not part of this motion, so I don't know where that'll go. But it's certainly our greatest cultural event that we have in the city, and it should remain a cultural event. I'd like to put an amendment, but I won't. That it should be a cultural event, not a political event. I hate standing down there seeing political advertisements from both sides of politics, trades hall, whatever union it may be. This is a cultural event, not a political event, and that really sours my taste for it. There are other forums to do that, and that's fine. Go and do those at election time, and but for both sides of politics, this is about people that come to Australia to want a better life, not about a union sprouting this or a Liberal sprouting that. It's not what this should be. I think we need to have some words to Diversitat about that. But in saying that, I certainly support this cultural event, and we should do so for many years to come. It should be a line item in the budget and not something that we have to discuss every few years. It should be a no-brainer that we support it, hands down. Thanks.
Mr. Nelson, if there's no further comment, I'll just make a quick comment in relation to this request. And it's not about the event itself. Diversitat, well known, well loved, been around a long time. It's not about that. In fact, it was council that saved Paco Festa not that long ago when it was changed from 2 days to 1 day and was in serious financial trouble. But it was the Geelong Council that got behind the event and has helped build it back up to what it is today. And that was no mean feat at the time to do that. I'm not too sure where the request for the $100,000 has actually come from, and I say that by virtue of having spent a considerable amount of time with the CEO, Michael Martinez, last year, where he was seeking further funding from council and was adamant that $10,000 was an extra $10,000 to take it from $72,000 to $82,000 was required. And council had a discussion about that increase in the funding, which was substantial at the time, but we agreed to that funding to go from 72 to 82. We also agreed to a 3-year deal on that $82,000 to help secure Paco Festa for its needs for the next 3 years. Now we sit here today trying to potentially give another $18,000 over 3 years to the Paco Festa. Now the point here, it's about the process we go through as a council in the allocation of funding. $18,000 per year to our budget is not a lot as such, and it is for a great cause, as there are many within the community. There are a lot of community organisations out there that would love to have this type of funding, even a portion of this particular funding to their event or their festival, of which we have a specific pool of money for. So the money that goes to our multicultural community, it's not just in Paco Festa. There are many other pools of money available to the community, multicultural, etc., that is available and is taken up. There are a number of community events that are taken up with the use of some funding from council, and that will continue, and that should continue. So this is not just the only bucket of money that goes to our multicultural community. It's much broader than that. We've even heard some of that this evening when talking about what Robin Stevens does, leading the community life area of council. It's a much broader picture than that when we allocate funding to our community. It's worth noting that the Diversitat financial statements of 2017 was very, very healthy. In fact, it posted a very, very healthy surplus. It did post a deficit last year in 2018, but I believe that was on the back of a particular business decision that perhaps didn't go as planned, and there was some costs incurred as a result. But by and large, the Diversitat business as such is a very good business. It's well run, it's quite successful, and it does have a good model, and it does very well. It has considerable state government support, considerable community support through different areas and different businesses that do sponsor Diversitat quite heavily. And Council is one of those community organisations that does help sponsor Diversitat. And we will continue to do so. I guess the point is it 82? Is it 100? Is it 150? I don't agree that the Council should be matching state government when it comes to funding different events. We simply do not have the capacity to do that. Whether it's Diversitat, whether it's a major event such as a festival sale or a Kell Evans bike ride where they go national and international and television, all the rest, the exposure is much greater. Diversitat is very much our community event. It's about us in our region here and making sure that we acknowledge and recognise and support our multicultural community. That's what Paco Festa to me is about. It's about getting behind at the grassroots level and really letting the multicultural community know that it has absolute support from its community via its council. Geelong Council does invest in the Paco Festa, it invests heavily, and we want to see it be sustainable into the future. We want to see it grow. I mean, when I say want to see it grow, of course you do, but when you go down to Paco on that great day, it's bumping. It's just about a full house in Paco, which is exactly what it's designed to be. That's the whole point of it. But I guess there comes, with everything there comes limits. How much more can we grow the event in that particular space? And I know, the little marquees are side by side and it stretches right down, and I know there's all sorts of logistical issues in relation to how we power those sites and our OH&S issues that go through that and our insurance issues that go with that, and they're all escalating, as they are with every event and everything the council does. There are costs that just continue to creep up on us. And as a result, council allocated more money to the Paco Festa. So I guess, while I will be reluctantly supporting the recommendation, I do want to say we need to sit down and work out exactly what is the best number for the Paco Festa, and what can we as a council sustain ourselves, and what can we do in relation to Paco Festa being, the best event it can be, but without continually coming back, as has happened in recent times, and asking for substantial extra funding. If every event did that, we'd be out the door in a heartbeat. It's just a fact of life. But they're my comments, and I'll go back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
I think, Mr Mayor, look, thank you for the debate from our fellow councillors around the room. I think, like Councillor Nelson, I am from Dutch and English heritage on one side, and I am married to a German-Polish man. That's where the Grisbeck comes from. My kids are therefore a real reflection of the true meaning of what Geelong is made up of, all communities. So I think, and that's what makes Geelong the best place to be, and probably I'm a little biased about that. This is a not-for-profit group, and I can ensure that there is probably no profit to be made from running festivals like this. It also brings, from what I understand, a $5.5 million economic impact to Geelong. And look, we have all the rules and regulations in place with this fund, and I'm sure we have the right governance across the investment. So there will be some reports and things that will have to be done in relation to this $100,000 each year to provide the benefit to the community. People from all over Victoria and from around Australia do attend this event. So this is, whilst the majority is a local event, there are people from many, many communities that support, from around Victoria and Australia, that support their community at Paco Festa because it's such a vibrant festival. Look, I'll ask my fellow councillors to support me in this amendment, and we will probably leave it at that, Mr Mayor.
Put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Those in favour, Councillor Aiken, Councillor Grisbeck, Councillor Contell, Councillor Harwood, Councillor Mason, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Nelson. Against, Councillor Manane.
The record show that as a division I was prepared to support the 82,000.
We can make a note to that effect. Thanks to Councillor Manane. Thank you. Item 5 is the UNESCO Creative Cities Network and AGM report. Moved Councillor Sullivan and seconded by myself. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you much, Mr Mayor. As a community, we are all proud of Geelong's elevation to a UNESCO City of Design and the benefits that this brings to us. One of Council's obligations as a designation is for the Mayor, as the Council's lead representative, to attend the annual general meetings. This report details the outcomes of Geelong's attendance at the UNESCO Creative Cities annual general meeting in Fabriano, Italy, from the 10th to 14th of June 2019. Mayor Bruce Harwood and the City of Greater Geelong's Manager of Economic Development and Events, Tim Ellis, attended the AGM as an obligation of Geelong to UNESCO. The 5-day conference saw Geelong promoted to a global network of 180 creative cities, with Mayor Harwood addressing a gathering of more than 60 other mayors, while Mr Ellis gave a keynote presentation on the clever and creative vision. The report notes this presentation was well received, with positive feedback from delegates. Attendance of this AGM also included participation in the City of Design sub-network meetings. The topics discussed here were the hosting of international exchanges and workshops with other creative cities, strengthening international cooperation between cities, sharing experiences, knowledges and best practices, participation in pilot projects and partnerships that contribute to sustainable development goals, taking part in research and evaluations, and promoting policies and measures for sustainable development. The report also says that the Mayor and Mr Ellis campaigned during the conference for Geelong to host the Cities of Design sub-network meeting in 2021, garnering support from a number of cities. The Mayor and Mr Ellis also held discussions with representatives from Helsinki, Kobe and Wuhan about the prospect of appearing as keynote speakers during next year's Geelong Design Week. These cities are all global leaders in the fields of design and education. The discussions were met with strong interest and are ongoing, proof that Geelong is not only being marketed to the world, but the world is coming to Geelong. In addition, the AGM uncovered a number of potential opportunities open only to members of the City of Design network, including opportunities for designers and creative artists from Geelong to apply for 3-month working residencies for a program in Kidini, Belgium. Opportunity for Geelong designers to participate in the Shenzhen Design Week in China, and opportunities for a design team to create and deliver a workshop in Spain. These have been communicated to local stakeholders and interested parties. The report says attendance at the AGM also allowed Geelong to further cement relationships with other creative cities, particularly Dundee, Kotrick, Kolding, Cape Town, Montreal, Nagoya and Singapore. The total cost of this trip was $6,446, well within the $10,000 budget approved by Council in February. The report is fully available online, Mr Mayor, and I remove the motion.
Mr Sullivan, I'll be reserved my right at this point. Any other councillors to make comment on the report? Councillor Aiken.
Just to wish Councillor spoken tonight, but it is his birthday, everybody, so congratulations, Trent.
Any other comments in relation to the report, Councillor Aiken? No, I'd suggest. Okay. If there's no further comment, I'll just add a couple of quick remarks in relation to where Geelong now sits as a city of design globally within the UNESCO organisation. Getting the designation in 2017 was a coup in itself. To see where Geelong sits now and to starting to build the strong profile within that designation cannot be understated. In fact, we're having conversations today about what is Geelong's brand, what do we stand for now, and the fact that we are now known as a clever, creative city of design with a UNESCO designation gives us a huge advantage as the only city in Australia to hold that designation and to be a part of the UNESCO family. It is an incredible position to be in. It gives us great connection around the globe. And what's been proven is the work that we are doing here when we've had international guests come over. In recent times we had Dundee and Kortrijk visit Geelong, and they were absolutely amazed at the work Geelong has done when they heard the stories about what the effective pyramid was for Geelong, where the scenario we've gone through with the Ford Shell Alcoa situation, and how we've been able to transition our community and our city into now a city of design, a clever creative city where we're seeing social insurance, we're seeing advanced manufacturing lead the way, we're seeing tourism lead the way, we're seeing a huge demand for people to come down to be in our region, to be in our environment down here. So Geelong is actually a great test case for a city that can change out of adversity into strength. And cities around the globe are now watching us closely as we continue on that particular path. And there is huge admiration for Geelong, the way they've gone about it and how they've brought their community along with them. So we have a great story to tell. It's been incredibly well received around the globe, and we'll continue to advocate in that space. I have to acknowledge, Tim's not here tonight, but Tim Ellis, who travelled with me, was a fantastic advocate for Geelong, spoke incredibly well at the meetings that he attended, and again was able to articulate the value that Geelong can bring to a global stage. And we are very, very active in trying to get the City of Design network to come to Geelong. We think we're making good progress, and we've heard there'll be further countries coming to Geelong for City of Design next year, which again, I guess, gives further credence to our credibility within an organisation. We'll continue to work hard there. As I say, the branding we now have cannot be understated. So I thank my fellow colleagues for their support, and we look forward to our council officers continuing to work hard in that space and continue to put Geelong up on a global stage, and for us to be recognised for the work we do economically but also socially in and around our community, which also has a very high standing, and environmentally also with the UNESCO organisation. Back to Councillor Sullivan to close. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mason.
I'd just like to make one little addition, or a couple of small additions, please, Mr Mayor.
Get away.
Thank you very much. Look, first of all, I'd just like to say it's quite disappointing seeing the negative press about some of our activities with UNESCO, and it's somehow or other to me is really quite small-minded. It's really our obligation to participate in this now that we are accredited with the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. And in particular, now that we are a city of design, we need to make our contribution. And we are developing international networks, and I think it's an incredibly important investment, this $6,600, where our mayor or his delegate and our officer engage with like-minded international people of the highest calibre and highest thinking. And I'd like to add, in regards to the word design, it's intimately related with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is intimately related to our One Planet principles. We talk about these all the time. And we're not just talking about design in terms of the physical form or manufacturing. We're talking about design of policies, design of planning, design of our social infrastructure. All of this comes back to the mindset in design thinking. And we are gaining and enriching ourselves by going to these meetings and creating some sort of network and international credibility to the extent that we will have people visiting here in the future. So I commend the report, and thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Sullivan to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to reiterate on what you did mention, operating on this stage, operating with cities around the world who have gone through the same struggles that we have, cities that have made the transition from a traditional manufacturing economy expanding into smart manufacturing and the likes of, is invaluable for our local economy. It puts us on the world stage. We're competing with cities here, as I mentioned, Montreal, Istanbul, Berlin. Geelong is a player on the world stage, and this is a part of that contribution. So, I move the motion. Thank you.
Sullivan, to put that recommendation of the report to the council. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Item 6 is the Transformation Program Progress Report, June 2019. Moved Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you. And seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a noting report. It's a report from in relation to the transformation program. I'd like to acknowledge that I think one of our monitors, Jude Munro, is watching online. So hello to Jude Munro while you are watching online. This report is already being given to the Minister on behalf of the monitors and the organisation. So there's not much more to add, Mr Mayor, but I think one thing to add is the last thing to add is that there's a quote in there from Jude Munro that says, there is a general view in Geelong that the council is doing well. So I think that says it all, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Mason, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I also am very encouraged by this report, and we do note that 19 out of the 28 projects are now complete or substantially complete, and that we're about to enter phase 2, which will focus on 6 areas. Those areas are civic accommodation, digital transformation, asset management, advocacy and stakeholder management, our people, and a service planning and review. We've all been very active in various committees over the last year with these 6 areas, and I look forward to doing more work on them in the future.
Mason, other councillors to make comment?
Talk about our beloved Jude Munro and the monitoring system we have in the city of Greater Geelong, but this is about a document talking about an update on how the city... What's quite fascinating is that most of the transformation project actually relates to the organisation. It actually doesn't relate to the councillors. But if you look at the public statements that the monitors are actually making and also the public understanding, they're actually focusing on the 20% that's about the councillors. And but what is encouraging is that the 80% of the work that the transition plan actually has identified is saying that the council is actually on track for it, and we are meeting our responsibilities associated with it. It is slightly regrettable that, like today's publicity, that the monitors' comments about the bullying issue are indicating that the monitors are taking a quite overseeing view of bullying in the city of Greater Geelong. Well, look, that's actually not the case. The CEO and his team are actually trying to put in place structures, responses and adequate management responses to try to change the culture of the city of Greater Geelong. And it is regrettable that the focus has been on some minor statements that have been made by the monitors in relation to the bullying issue. The CEO and the management team are significantly invested in trying to change the reputation that this organisation have, but most importantly, they actually want the workplace to be a workplace that everybody wants to be part of, and everybody has the capacity to be able to fulfil their full ambitions and actually be a public servant of the city of Greater Geelong. And I think... And I have to take some responsibility because I've made some statements in the past about the bullying issue. I think we do have the right CEO and I think we do have the right management team to be able to change the culture of this organisation. And the reality is that everybody has to buy in to the environment and the vision that we want as an organisation to fulfil our vision and ambition to actually be the best that we can actually be. And I hope that in future reports that the Monitor actually makes some encouraging statements about the cultural change that actually is being undertaken and managed in the city of Greater Geelong. And I personally have been very impressed with the last 3 to 4 weeks of the information that we've been receiving as councillors in relation to the cultural change. Some significant component of it has been the appointment of the new Executive Manager of People and Culture in Karina, and both our employee representative organisation in terms of the unions and my contact with them. Everybody at this point in time is speaking very highly of Karina's fresh approach to try to change the culture of this organisation. And I look forward to the next quarterly report from the monitors, which actually starts giving the community confidence that one of the most significant issues that was identified in the past, that this organisation does have cultural issues and cultural problems, is being addressed, and the changes that are being put in place are sustainable and will give the community confidence that we are fulfilling our role and the senior management team are enacting our vision and our expectations about what type of workplace we want for every one of our employees.
Councillor Aiken, any other comments from other councillors? Councillor Sullivan, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to add my support to the results that this transformation program progress is showing. Just quickly, out of 4 or 3 indicators on here, 76 are over 75% completed in what we're doing here for this 4-year program. So I believe it does show excellent work.
Councillor Sullivan, before I go back to Councillor Grisbeck to close, I'll just make a couple of quick comments just in relation to the extensive work that has been done and is being done and will continue to be done. Everybody knows in any organisation to change a culture or to get a culture to a level that where you're comfortable with takes a lot of work and a lot of buy-in. There's 2,700 employees within the council, and it's fair to say that not everyone's going to have a good day. It's just a fact of life. Someone in that 2,700 is perhaps not going to have the best day and may have a complaint to make about it. And if that's the case, that complaint goes through a proper process with due consideration, as is always the case. Our CEO has gone above and beyond to ensure that every particular opportunity is taken to better the organisation, whether it's through the finances, whether it's through the staffing and through the culture. And I can honestly say that his commitment to that has been unparalleled to date. I'd also think it's worth noting that one of the most sensitive areas of council is through the HR department, because it is personal, it is emotional, and it is difficult. And it's a really tricky part of council to try and balance out a result that everybody accepts, because often that's not the case. When complaints are made or wishes are to be discussed and somebody's aggrieved by a result, that is not an outcome that perhaps they want or expect, but that unfortunately is often the case. So you have to then manage that particular outcome of the result of an investigation or a complaint. So it's a really tricky area. We have some excellent people looking after this organisation and balancing that out. So it will continue. I think the report from Jude Munro and Peter Dorling is a very accurate reflection of where the council is at today, bearing in mind the workload that the council carries and the workload that it continues to do in relation to community expectations, which in my time I don't think have ever been higher. The community expectation of council at times is completely unrealistic. But be that as it may, it doesn't mean you don't keep striving to try and meet those expectations as best you can. But sometimes there are restraints, whether it's financial or resources or purely it's just an unrealistic expectation that's been driven. So I just make those comments that as a council, we'll continue to work as best we can. We'll face the challenges together. And as I always say, we're only as strong as our weakest link. So if we have people who are struggling in our work environment, we need to address that. But I can honestly sit here and say, of the number of people I've spoken to in more recent times, in the last few months as such, I've not had one person say they're not enjoying their time at council. They all have said it's a great place to work, it's a great environment. They're well looked after, they have great conditions, they have great work environment, they're making good progress in their careers. I've not had one person actually say, I'm not happy, I've got this problem. They may have it. I'm perhaps not the best person to actually say I've got a problem too. It's not my responsibility. But be that as it may, people are always quick to criticise and slower to be complimentary. Be that as it may, I just make the comment that this council is working very hard, and the work of Jude and Peter has been instrumental in helping us in recent times. Councillor Grisbeck to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think after that I don't have anything further to add.
Recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Item 7 is the planning authorisations. Council to staff. Moved Councillor Mason and seconded Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city's recently appointed a new senior statutory planner, Lana Krasas. So that Lana can fulfil the requirements of her role, Council is required to appoint her as an authorised officer under the Planning and Environment Act 1987. This will give her authorisation to exercise her statutory powers under various acts and regulations. And Mr. Mayor, the report we are now considering asks us to do this, and if we do so, the authorisation will come into effect immediately.
Councillor Mason, Councillor Sullivan.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments from councillors? If not, Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I put the recommendation of the vote. Those in favour? Excuse me. Those against? Thank you. Item 8 is tender for the additional contractors for the supply of concrete and concrete works. Councillor Contel has a conflict, so leaves. Councillor Manane to move, please, and Councillor Sullivan to second. Thank you, Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is about awarding a contract to additional panel suppliers for the supply of concrete and concrete works throughout our municipality. You have the 5 companies listed there. We did contract a panel back in December, but since that time we've found that the delivery of Council's program involving concrete and concrete services insufficient suppliers, so we do need to bring on these additional contractors. This new contract will align that with the December contract, and they will expire on the 16th of December 2019, both contracts together, and we can then look at further extensions of that period. So I recommend the paper to my fellow councillors.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Just goes to show the amount of work going on in our city, the infrastructure required, and how we are going to the next level. So I second the motion.
Any other comments to be made from councillors? If not, back to Councillor Manane to close. Thank you. Put the recommendation of the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you. Just get Councillor Contel to return. Okay, item 9 is a contractual matter that needs to go into confidential, but what I will say is in relation to LED lighting in and around our city area. So we have a number of confidential matters arising as a result of that, and that's why it will go into the confidential section of the meeting. So we'll move in a second, please. Move Councillor Nelson, second Councillor Mason. It's moving into confidential. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. And also item 10 is a contractual matter, again confidential. That's in relation to our renewable energy purchase agreement. So, again, confidential matters. Move Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Those in favour, those against. That is moved to confidential. Thank you. Section C is our notice of motion. We have a notice of motion this evening from Councillor Aiken and Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aiken to move and Councillor Grisbeck to second. Thank you.
I'd like to move it. Yeah. I've actually just lost it in front of me at the moment. I had it there, but that's okay. This is actually quite important for Kylie and I. We've now been elected for 20 months under the current governance structure that we have under the City of Greater Geelong, and under the governance structure that we have 11 councillors representing the community, and in the electoral boundaries that we have 3 wards that have 3 councillors, and we have 1 ward which actually has 2 councillors. And it's actually been an interesting thing whenever we talk to members of our community about this issue. They actually don't understand why, and why do you live, if you're north of the Ballarat railway line, essentially in the City of Greater Geelong at the present time, you have the ability to have 2 councillors representing you, and if you live south of the Ballarat railway line, you get the opportunity to have 3 councillors representing you. So there actually is an issue about fairness and equity in terms of the system that we have. And then some people have tried to sort of say to Kylie and I that it's about community of interests. Like the community of interest determines where the boundaries are and the system that we have. But the confusing thing that I have about the communities of interest is that we have, apart from the Brownbill ward, we have the same community interest diversities as what Kidini and Ballerine. And what I mean by that is that they have outlying small communities, and they have regional parts of Geelong that move into their boundary locations. Well, that's exactly what we have in the north. We have Corio, Norlane, North Shore as urbanised parts of Geelong. But then we have very strong and different communities of interest with Lara, Anarchy, a small pocket of people in the Point Wilson and Avalon area. And then we also have another strong community of interest in the Batesford area that falls within our community as well too. And I actually, and Kylie, do strongly believe it is an anomaly in our current governance system that we do have, that you don't have an equal number of voices if you do come from the northern parts of the city. The council chamber is a very important thing in terms of the governance and representation of the community. And in the Geelong Council, we have one councillor missing, and that one councillor is an additional councillor for the northern part of the city. And we're not suggesting a major reform and change with the motion that we've put up tonight, but we're actually calling on the Minister to use the existing legislation, and the existing legislation actually is the City of Greater Geelong Act, and that Act actually states the electoral system that should be used for the 2016 election, and then it actually says that future elections should be governed by the Local Government Act of 1989, and the Local Government Act actually does give the Minister the power to actually change boundaries, to change the number of councillors up to a maximum of 12. So there are some, and there also is capacity to change the names of wards as well too under the Local Government Act. So essentially, Kylie and I are actually asking the council tonight, because we have canvassed this issue for quite a number of months with our colleagues about what their views are. We respect that it will cause some change in the electoral boundaries if it is adopted, and that is unsettling for some councillors because the upheaval that our local government system has had in Geelong since 1992, with amalgamation of 6 into 1, it seems to be every couple of years the electoral framework has actually changed, and that does have, if anyone who's a student of governance, it actually does make it really difficult to have continuity and good strategic decision making when you continuously have the electoral system that the politicians actually have to operate is under continuous change. But at this point in time, Kylie and I strongly believe that the need for equal representation in Geelong is more paramount than concerns about the changes of electoral boundaries. The fact that nationally our most disadvantaged and most socially inequitable parts of Geelong actually exist within this ward as well too, is a strong argument why there should be at least another voice in this council fighting for the justice that community does need and require. And look, Kylie and I have received a lot of praise from our community, and we've received a lot of praise from our fellow councillors that we are very strong representatives for the community that we have. And we acknowledge that, and we thank you for those comments. But it goes down to the core principle of how many voices does the community have at the table. And at this point in time, there's only 2 voices that are directly related towards that community. And with the suggested requests to the Minister, we're essentially saying for the 2020 general election next year that an equal representation system is introduced. The Minister has flagged, which all of us are aware of, and the public consultation closes tomorrow on the 31st of July, that future council governance structures in Victoria, not just in Geelong, should have single ward member representation, which that would address the concern about equal representation, because it would mean that one vote would actually equal one councillor within the City of Greater Geelong. So it would represent the equal and fairness requirements that Kyle are having. But we don't have any knowledge if that's actually going to be introduced in 2020. In fact, the communiques that have been placed up until this point in time are suggesting that it will be introduced in 2024. So Kylie and I strongly believe that the community in our northern suburbs do deserve to have the same number of voices on the council chamber as what other members of the community in the City of Greater Geelong have. And A second component of the notice of motion is actually a reflection about the naming of the ward. Council will shortly be releasing its first reconciliation plan, and one of the strongest things we can do is actually be judged on our behaviour of what we do in terms of our reconciliation with our Indigenous population and the First People. And one of the anomalies that we have is that the ward that Kylie and I represent actually has an Anglo-Saxon name to term its electoral boundaries. And we've actually found no connection of our community with that. All there is a road that's named Windermere that runs geographically through the middle of the Windermere ward. And to the local community, it actually doesn't engender participation and encouragement to be involved in the local government structure. And Kylie and I believe that it is a unique opportunity to actually reflect one of the most significant geographical features of the northern part of Geelong and the Yuyangs. And we are blessed that the Yuyangs actually does come from an Aboriginal terminology. So we have the capacity to actually recognise that geographical place and actually name the ward after the Yuyangs as well too. And I just sort of say to anybody that actually drives on the Western Ring Road, when you're actually driving to Melbourne and you first break out through the northern parts, do you know what you actually see when you look forward? You actually see the Yuyangs. And it's the most powerful symbol that we have as you're driving to Melbourne, and in fact it is the most powerful symbol that we have when you're driving from Melbourne as well too. And I think it is appropriate that we do recognise it for the significance that it does have. And I was always bemused when the city of Wyndham was actually established and the city of Greater Geelong was established back in 1995, that the city of Wyndham actually used the Yuyangs in their logo, and it's only recently that it's been taken out of their logo. And that reflected the fact that when you look south from Werribee, the most significant geographical feature that you see is actually the Yuyangs. So they were actually taking it and putting it in their logo. And there's an opportunity with this motion tonight for us to actually take the Yuyangs back and actually put them into the significant position that they deserve, and that is one of the most important geographical pieces of landscape that we have in Geelong, and give a connection for everybody that does live within the Northern Ward, a name and understanding that they have a connection with, which is why we're proposing to ask the Minister to change the name of the ward from Windermere to Yuyangs.
Councillor Grisbeck.
I'll reserve my right, Mr Mayor.
Any other councillors to speak on this particular issue? Yep.
I don't disagree with much of what the notice of motion is trying to achieve, and I appreciate all of the points that have been raised in the notice of motion and also the commentary shared by Councillor Aitken. And I actually have no problem with the renaming of the ward. The only issues I have is the constant change that this community has been exposed to with the council makeup and the ward boundaries over the past several decades, particularly recently. We had single ward councillors. We had a dismissal of a council. We had administrators put in. We've got multi-councillor wards now in play, and yet now there's another review. I don't necessarily agree with the state government reviewing again and giving uncertainty to the community, as Councillor Aitken has alluded to. And so it's not that I don't support the intent of what Councillor Grisbeck and Councillor Aitken are bringing to the chamber tonight, but just in principle, I'm not supportive of further change again in the wards or the makeup of the council, whether that be what state government present to us in the medium-term future or whatever we may decide to advocate on behalf of tonight. I'll just finish off to say that I feel that Councillor Grisbeck and Councillor Aitken have a significant amount of support in the chamber for their initiatives in the north, and certainly I, for one, try to get behind everything that they bring forward. They have an excellent engagement process amongst them in that ward, and even with, there's no guarantee with multi-councillor wards that you'll have unity, and we've seen that in the other wards, whereas I think by and large Councillor Aitken and Councillor Grisbeck have been very well united on most of the items and matters that have been of significance in that community. So with respect, with the utmost respect, I won't support the notice of motion tonight, not because of its intent or what it brings to the chamber, but on the basis that I just don't feel that the community should be exposed to more change yet again. And I'd feel equally similarly if the recommendation from the state was to go a different tact once again with the ward makeup and councillor makeup.
Councillor Contel, just before we move on, I'm just conscious of time and our responsibilities when we go over 10 o'clock, because we're keen to still be here. In accordance with clause 3.31.2 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law, we need to move a motion to continue the meeting beyond 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. So a call for a move and a seconder to continue the meeting beyond 10 p.m. It is optional, Councillor Grisbeck, too.
If my notice of motion is not going to get up, I'm happy not to extend the meeting. If my notice of motion is going to get up, I want to continue the meeting.
I'll give that due consideration, Councillor Aiken. So move Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Seconded Councillor Mason. Those in favour? Okay. Those against? Right, we continue. Anyone else to speak on the notice of motion? Thank you, Councillor Nelson, then Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly wanted to apologise to what I'm guessing are mostly Highton residents out there, so we will get to you soon. I certainly understand Councillor Aitken's concern with wanting to change this. I get why he wants to do it, I really do. I understand how difficult and frustrating it is at budget time when there's just two voices trying to get things for the north and only two voices in the whole of the state advocating for the north when there should be more. I'm sure Councillor Aitken knows what I mean. I don't disagree with what Councillor Contel said with regard to the sentiment, and I understand what he was trying to do. But my concern is, and I fully support it, but my concern is the boundary changes and what that will do and what that may do to where I live, to the people where I live. That might put Highton in Brownbill Ward for 4 years and then put it out into possibly Deakin Ward 4 years later. I saw the confusion in 2019 at the recent federal election when people didn't know that they weren't in Corangamite anymore and they were in the seat of Corio. And that was quite upsetting and frustrating for them. I do get that, and this is why I can't support this, Councillor Aitken, because of what it might do for people of Highton that are across the river that have their boundary of the Barwon River, but were not taken into consideration for the federal election, and now we're in the seat of Corio for reasons that I still don't understand. So, although I understand it and I accept it and fully appreciate what you're trying to do, with respect, I'll have to vote against this notice of motion tonight. And hopefully you'll vote for my notice of motion in a few minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand the sentiments of Councillor Contel and there is no desire for great change, and that is disruptive. And I support that point, especially with the mooted major changes, which I do regard as highly disruptive, given the transformation process only of recent times. However, I don't think that Councillor Aitken's proposal is highly disruptive. I think it's of minimal disruptive and we do nature, and we do expect boundary changes from time to time. We do expect change from time to time. We expect the city of Greater Geelong to grow. And so boundaries will naturally change from time to time and people will have to accept changes of these boundaries. So I think that the proposal has merit. I think it shows that there would be minimum disruption to a few people on the boundaries, and I think the equity of the foreseen Yuyangs ward having three ward councillors is only appropriate. And I do remember actually before the recent election, it was Brownbill ward actually that had two ward councillors allocated to it, and at the last minute it was changed. And so those boundaries changed also rapidly, and I think it wouldn't take a great deal of work to adjust the boundaries in a rational sort of way. So I support both of the elements of Councillor Aitken's and Councillor Grisbeck's motion.
Mr Mason, no further comment. Just before I go back to Councillor Grisbeck to have her say, just my view quite simply is, I still don't understand today why we're a councillor short on this particular council. We've left a particular ward one short. I just cannot understand the rationale behind that at all. We talk about equity ad nauseum, and rightly so, and here we are, have a great example of inequity in our council makeup. So I fully support the notice of motion as it stands, and fully support the potential change of the Windermere ward to the Yuyangs ward. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, thank you to all my fellow councillors for their opinions. We are in uncertain times now, knowing that we have a bill coming shortly, the Local Government Bill 2019, anyway. This motion is about fairness. When I ran for council in 2017, one of the things that I said, along with many other things, one being hard waste, was that we needed a fair and transparent system. And I know that Councillor Aiken and I are pretty firm on this view that this is about fairness, this is about my community has 2 votes and the other parts of the community have 3. When I was a child, if I got 3 lollies and my brother got 2, that would not be fair. And so I was brought up with being fair. So I know that many of my fellow councillors have said, be careful what you wish for, because that will mean 3 councillors in Windermere ward. But that is what I wish for. I wish for my community to have fairness across the city of Greater Geelong. Now, I know that Councillor Aiken and I are fairly outspoken at times, but that's because we need to be, because we are in the minority. I also support with Councillor Aiken, the change to Yuyangs. I think it's a respectful, iconic place within our ward to be named after. I thank everybody for their comments, and pass back to you, Mr Mayor.
Aiken to close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I think Councillor Grisbeck has spoken very well, and other councillors have as well too. I respect that people have different opinions and views. All I say, it's actually not in Kylie and I's political interest to actually be doing this, because it does change the environment we have to get elected in. It actually is not in our self-interest as well too to actually do it, because I think it'd be very comfortable for Kylie and I to run again in a smaller ward with a strong profile. And so it's actually not in our self-interest to be doing this at all. Ultimately, it is in the interests of our community that we represent that we're doing this. It's been a consistent message that we've had since the elections in October of 2017, and it's because of that we've reached the crescendo on this particular issue, where it is time where we actually make a policy position as terms of the council. And that policy position clearly is saying that we do want fairness and equity in terms of the governance structure for the city of Greater Geelong. and as a consequence, we believe that this is the most minimal manner in which to do it. And I think Councillor Gresbeck summed it up best. Adoption of the name Geelong is probably the most respectful manner that we can have to identify that geographical location. And I thank the councillors for their consideration on this issue.
Councillor Aiken, I put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The recommendation is carried. The motion is carried. Thank you. Our next item is Assembly of Council. Just a mover and a seconder, please. Moved, Councillor Sullivan, thank you, and seconded, Councillor Nelson. Those in favour, those against? Those carried, thank you. Our planning delegations, move and a seconder, please. Moved, Councillor Sullivan, seconded, Councillor Grisbeck. Those in favour, those against? Those carried. Takes us to urgent business. Our first urgent business is from Councillor Nelson, so I need to put that urgent business motion to the vote that we will hear that. We need 2/3. So those in favour of hearing Councillor Nelson's urgent business?
There might be a bit of trouble in there.
No, they're not. But that is carried. So moved, Councillor Nelson. Seconded, Councillor Benane. Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First, I wanted to thank the Highton residents for staying by certainly after my bedtime, and probably most of your bedtime as well. This is what we do on a Tuesday night. Some of us get kicks out of it. I know Councillor Aiken gets a kick out of it, so he's not listening. But I'll get to the urgent business at hand. Earlier in the day, I was reading the Geelong Addy that was talking about trying to find articles on mental health and the fact that certainly we support mental health and mental health facilities in our municipality. And I came across an article that said, this was only 2 months old, and it said Geelong Hospital Crisis Hub to tackle rise in mental health cases. And there's a 47% increase in mental health admissions at the Geelong Hospital in the last 3 years. So it's gone up 50% in the last 3 years. And the state premier was down a few months ago, not only 2 months ago, and pledged $100 million across the state to help drive down hospital violence due to mental health conditions, which is really only $500,000 per hospital, which is not much, which is really unfortunate. So we know it's an issue in our municipality, and we need to do something about it. And Haven are proposing to build a facility in Highton, as we all know. Let me just have a drink. That being said, I wanted to just preface what I'm about to say, that Council prides itself on its community consultation. In fact, we just heard Councillor Grisbeck say that Council puts its community first. And I wish I could say the same about the current state government. The state Labor government put a clause in the planning scheme amendment last year, clause 52.22 on the 26th of October 2018, as you all know out there, just 2 days before caretaker period, just before the state election. No one knew about this. Probably most of the people in this room didn't know, but we certainly know now. But what does that mean? This clause did not pass through chambers in state parliament. In fact, it was signed off by the then Minister for Planning. This clause exempts certain businesses from applying for a planning permit and exempts the business from seeking community consultation. Now, this is not just a Highton issue, although most of the people here are from Highton, and I understand. But this is a statewide planning provision, and Council has no power to have any input whatsoever. This is clearly contempt by the state Labor government for its constituents and for councils across Victoria. The only exemptions are that it must be funded by the state government, it must have no more than 20 clients to be accommodated, and there must not have any more than 5 people at the facility at any one time, apart from those 20 people. This particular facility is a 3-storey development. We only found out that only weeks ago. I was told by the chair of Haven Foundation that it was only 2-storey. And in fact, we all know now it's a 3-storey development. And from the street, it's 10 metres high. So this is a big, big building. Oh, I was. That's great. Okay. It will be currently, once it's built, it will be the only three-storey building in Highton, but we all know that there's a few more coming because of the aged care facilities that are being built down the road. This is not about, for me, this is not about the purpose of this facility. As someone who works in the disability sector, the need for these facilities in Geelong, as I highlighted earlier, is growing, and we need to combat this now, and we need to do it as a community, not just as individuals or a state government or a council. This is our responsibility as a community. We need to do it. But this is a commercial facility in a residential area, and there's been no community consultation whatsoever. So I brought this motion forward that says, Councillor, by letter of Mayor, Mr Mayor, to write a letter to the Minister for Planning, request a review of clause 52.22. I do apologise, it's after my bedtime, as I said. To request the Victorian planning scheme in relation to community care accommodation to allow for a more transparent process by providing for community input into such a development proposal and highlighting that the current provisions fail to provide community consultation in relation to issues around design, height, scale, bulk and neighbourhood character. But as you all know, we live in Highton for its neighbourhood character, and big three-storey buildings aren't part of that neighbourhood character. So I'll say a bit more in a moment, not much more, and hopefully my fellow councillors will say that this is not just a Highton issue, because it's not, it's a statewide issue. So I'll leave it to my fellow councillors to talk about this. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I support Councillor Nelson's recommendation, and he's just read it out. And I think the key issues there is design, height, scale, bulk, and neighbourhood character, and especially that neighbourhood character. And again, this is an issue that is not only relevant to Highton, but relevant to all Geelong, in fact, all residential communities throughout Victoria. Like my fellow ward councillors, we've lived in this area for a long time, and we really do value the neighbourhood character of our community. In the past 2 years, I've seen 3 very substantial developments in this traditional residential area of Highton. And these developments are bringing some pretty valuable services and facilities into our community. However, I really do think they could be achieved without the overdevelopment aspect. And I think in both of the other developments, which were both retirement homes, it came to planning, we were able to have a small impact in the overdevelopment aspect of it. Probably not to the extent that we wanted to, but we did have a small win at VCAT. And it leads me to ask myself the question around the overdevelopment. Are we adding value to our community, or are we adding value to the investors' balance sheet? The reality is that if we work together, both can be achieved, and we need to get a little bit better at it than we are at the moment. These 3 developments that I spoke about all need for this to be the case, and all need for us to reach that agreement. Pretty strong believer, I'd have to say, that all of these developments bring community issues into our community. I feel strongly that these are issues that belong to our community, and that we ought to be solving them. I know there's some fairly strong pushback by some sections of the Highton community regarding the mental health facility. And I agree with a lot of what they're saying, although I would say that this facility, if it had been built at a reasonable size, with notice to design, height, scale, bulk and character, would probably have been accepted by the community. But the fact that it hasn't been built within that, there has been a serious backlash. I say this because if anybody's ever been involved with care of a person close to you, whether it be a sibling or your parent or your child, with respect to mental health, you'll know that all you want for them is care. And if you want to be part of that care personally, part of their care program, then you don't want to have to drive to Melbourne or Ballarat or somewhere else. You want them close by. Therefore, I think it's important that we have these sort of facilities in our communities so that we can deal with the community problem that exists. And as Councillor Nelson has rightly pointed out, it's an issue that's getting greater and not going away. In fact, I really do believe that the closer you are to the loved one that you're trying to impact on, it is probably extremely important for their recovery and their existence the closer you are. So what we're really looking for here, that has been pointed out in Councillor Nelson's recommendation, we're looking for an appropriate development approach, we're looking for transparency around the system, and we're looking for an opportunity to contribute to the planning process at an early stage where we can actually voice any concerns or requirements of our community. In fact, at a recent meeting, we recommended to officers that we should get in front of the game and identify suitable sites within the Geelong area for developments of this nature and pass that information on to the public requests of this nature, so that where we can avoid conflict and work with our community, we use every opportunity to do so. So I think if we can write to the state government and seek a better process through this initiative, then I think we may all be better off for the process. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I receive Councillor Monane's thoughtful comments with some praise. There's so many issues here being raised, and one word I'd like to announce and remind us all of is NIMBY, not in my backyard. And that is something that's prevalent in our society. And I've noticed it through various planning appeals that this attitude does exist. And we do need to be mindful of that, and the way we do need to integrate these institutions or these social support units in our society. And so a bigger point, though, is consultative democracy. And consultative democracy is lacking here. And we need to bring everybody along with us. And it's extremely disappointing that we do have some NIMBYism in our society. It's more disappointing that we seem to be succumbing to some of this imposed lack of consultative democracy. So the spirit of the motion I support, though I do think that we do need to be very careful. It wasn't so long ago that we closed all these mental health institutions and expected people to be integrated in our society. And somehow or other we've forgotten how to talk about all of these issues. So I support the motion.
Mason, Councillor Grisbeck, then Councillor Contell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think quite simply I see this notice of motion as a notice of motion for community consultation. If nothing else, in my term as a councillor, I've learned the power of community. That usually delivers the right outcome. I'm supportive of any process as long as we have given the community the opportunity. And that's why I'll be supporting this notice of motion, is because it actually asks for community consultation. It doesn't ask for the reversal. It doesn't ask for the minister to make a different decision. What it's saying is we want a review and we want community to have their say. And for that one, I'm particularly supportive. Thank you.
Councillor Grisbeck, Councillor Contell.
Look, obviously this is an extremely important matter for Councillor Nelson, because we all know how much he hates urgent business and hates the fact that reports are brought to council without consultation first. But I know that in this instance he has no other choice, or felt that he had no other choice, and I applaud him in the way that the notice of motion is drafted. In fact, I think, without speaking on behalf of him, but I think where he's coming from is that the development, or proposed development Highton, is really just the catalyst for him having to do this, because at no point in time does his notice of motion talk about that development. It's the process. If we hear, or if we heard what the community said to us tonight, you could quite easily sense their frustration and their emotion about this. They feel like they've had no opportunity to provide input or feedback, and now, at least with council, whilst there might be frustrations and there might be a winner and a loser, but with our planning process, community get the opportunity to provide feedback, and at times it may even come to a councillor committee hearing panel. With this current situation that we've got here, we've had a change to an addition to the planning scheme that was introduced by stealth, similar to what you see with policy change just before Christmas of every year. And yet we're being held to account and being held to conform to our transformational program, and we saw that report only earlier on, and a lot of that talks about governance and information management and relationship and reputation management, and then here we have the same people that are holding us to account not leading by positive example at all. And so tonight's notice of motion is just not fair. It's not fair in the way that these developments are being introduced, right, wrong or otherwise, and it could happen in any of our backyards, as Councillor Mason has said. It just so happens that this one is in Highton, but the next one could be in the Bellarine, and it could be in Newtown. It's just not fair that the community do not have an opportunity to provide feedback, to have their say, and to have proper consultation, which is what we try to do and try to improve on every day that we're in this place. Not that we always get it right, but this one here is just blatantly wrong. And Councillor Nelson has my full support.
Councillor Contell, Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Look, I am going to respond in the appropriate manner to Councillor Nelson on this particular notice of motion. Look, one of the hallmarks of this particular council has always been that an issue is actually judged on its merits, not on its personalities. And I know Councillor Nelson sort of said that I was probably more likely not to support his notice of motion because he didn't support mine. But no, I am going to support Councillor Nelson's notice of motion tonight, and I support it for the reasons that actually have been presented by Councillor Manane and Councillor Nelson in particular. But I do want to challenge this concept that it is a Labor Party or a Labor government trait. This is actually a state government trait to actually impose changes in the planning scheme on a on a state basis. It's Matthew Guy, the former planning minister under the Ted Baillieu and Naptime government, actually has the record number of ministerial decisions that were made within the 2 days before losing his office as the Minister for Planning, and set a new record for intervention for a Minister for Planning. So to accuse the current state Labor government is following practices that are profoundly, contrary to good government. Unfortunately, the opposite side of politics has got a track record of doing exactly the same thing as well too. So it's not correct to say that this is just a Labor state government agenda. Both sides of politics do this quite regularly, and the the people who actually suffer from this is actually the community. And essentially that's what this notice of motion is actually referring to, that we really do want to have the capacity to have community engagement for these types of facilities, and that usually does mean that a better outcome does occur if we do have the capacity for community engagement. The planning scheme amendment doesn't allow community engagement, and we're actually essentially writing to the Minister asking if that isn't a significant flaw, and it does need to be changed and it does need to be addressed. In terms of the statement about the provision of these type of facilities, the reality is we have a significant mental health crisis in Geelong, and we actually have that crisis everywhere around Australia. Sadly, in Geelong, access and quality access is actually dependent by your financial capacity, and that is not a healthy society that actually does that. And sadly, in Geelong, your access to psychologists and your access to supports is based on the size of your wallet. And that's totally unacceptable for a society that is supposed to be based on fairness and equity. And these type of facilities are desperately needed in the Geelong region, and they need to be in the appropriate site locations as well too for that to occur. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Before I go back to Councillor Nelson to close, I'll just make a couple of quick comments just in relation to Kidini Ward in particular. Has certainly been doing a lot of the heavy lifting in relation to development in recent times in regard to aged care facilities in particular. We see a number coming into the area. It presents such great, I guess, potential there with large blocks of land and large, as I say, large blocks of land that lend themselves to these types of facilities. So they're being snapped up by investors, by shrewd investors. And in this case, we simply have not been able to have the proper consultation we would like to have had for this facility that's going ahead in Roslyn Road. I will be meeting with the Minister for Local Government tomorrow. I will be raising this issue with him in relation to the comments tonight by our community, by some of the comments around the table from the councillors, and how we feel about the process that's been undertaken that's brought us here this evening to make a difficult decision in relation to the Haven Foundation business. And as we said, it's not that we don't want that particular business. It is, at this point in time, is this the best location for it to be placed? And that seems to be the question at the moment. But I think the Minister, by not having community consultation, having heard from the community, perhaps heard from the council on their views, I don't think they've been able to make the best informed decision. And that is what I will take to the Minister tomorrow. And I'll also take up the issue in relation to the ward councillor issue out in Windermere with the Minister tomorrow. We'll see how we go. But I think it is worth noting, as I say, Kidini Ward has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this space, and we'll continue to do so. But we have to look broader through the region so we get equity through the region. Councillor Nelson to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly wanted to say that Highton has certainly borne the brunt of overdevelopment in the last few years. So I wanted to thank my fellow councillors for what they've just said. Certainly take on board most of things are pretty positive. Certainly this is not a Highton issue. This will be a state issue that has the potential to ruin the fabric of our suburbs across the state. It really does. These giant, big 3-storey, 4-storey buildings. It doesn't matter what goes on inside. It's just that they don't suit. And taking on board what Councillor Mason said, he probably read my notes, I'm not sure, because it's easy to sit here and say not in our ward, and therefore I'd ask that the Mayor, in addition to this notice of motion, ask the Mayor to write to the Chair of the Haven Foundation to come down and visit Geelong and look at other better sites, such as the current Gen U site in Belmont, which is in the Kidini Ward. It's in our ward. So I'm not saying we don't want it in our ward, because we do. I can't think of a better site than that Gen U site, which is currently up for sale. And if you've got the Minister down, he can open up his chequebook. I'm taking the line out that I was going to write, so I won't say that. This site is already fit for purpose. It's already fit for use. It's close to public transport. It's close to a busy shopping precinct. It's a better fit for this community care accommodation, and if you can get the chair of the Haven Foundation, I'll even buy him lunch if he comes down. So it's not that we don't want it in our ward, we do, but it's whereabouts. And this current Genu facility in Kidini Street, Riverview Terrace and Barrel Road is the perfect spot for this kind of facility. So I'll leave it there to my fellow councillors to support this if they will. Thanks.
Nelson, I put that recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. You're free to leave if you wish. We will stick around for a few more items, though. Our next item is, again, urgent business raised by myself in relation to a response to the recycling crisis. So I'll be moving. Seconding, Councillor Mason, thank you. Sorry, my apologies. I need to get 2/3 to hear the motion. So I have a mover. Move Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Those in favour, those against, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Mason. Look, the recycling issues we're facing in the region are well documented. They've been well discussed. I think it's timely and urgent that we keep the pressure on the state government to ensure that we are consistently heard about what we are facing down here. We are looking at a severe blowout in our budget for transporting waste and also for our landfill. This is going to have a huge economic impact and a huge detrimental environmental impact. So it is a crisis, it is urgent, and we are staring down the barrel without any answers at the moment. We're not hearing any alternatives to our current situation from the state and or the feds for that matter. And we as a council are just not in a position to basically go and build a new MRF, go and introduce new policy in relation to waste management. We can do it at a local level, but it won't have the same impact if it comes from the state government, who is holding a very handy purse of around about $500 million of our landfill levy money, and we're not seeing an urgent response to the crisis being felt by at least 32 councils plus others in and around the region. So I'm asking that the recommendation is supported by writing to the Minister for the Environment requesting Australian sustainable packaging guidelines to be mandated rather than a priority. That is a starting point of where our waste starts. So if we can start there, that's a good initiative. The state premier calling for the state government to introduce a container deposit scheme. We're the only state in Australia that doesn't have it. Again, well documented what that could mean in relation to waste reduction in our community, particularly plastic and glass. Calling the state government to immediately publish guidelines for councils to apply for funding from the State Sustainability Fund via the EPA land levy, and that could be, trying to get another MRF down here. The council doesn't want to run the MRF, but we need that particular facility down here to actually help with our waste issues. And the other, note and support the state government announcement to develop a circular economy policy and action plan, and request the CEO reports to council by September 2019 on the options and costs for alternatives to collect and process recycled materials, whether that's a fourth bin or we alternate our yellow top to cardboard and waste one week and plastic the next, or whatever it might be. But there are alternatives out there. We're not doing any of them at the moment. We need pressure on the state government to react and react quickly. That's the premise behind the urgent business, and I hope it's supported. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was going to say that this is an accident which was about to happen, but in fact it's no accident. So I have to find another word. I'll just say incident. But certainly authorities at state and national levels have been aware of this for a long time, and it's really disappointing that there's been no significant action taken on this issue. Even though at our council level, I'm very much aware that our council staff have been really working very hard to find solutions that do not lie, sustainable and durable solutions do not lie within the gamut of one municipality. And so we do need state and national leadership, especially where it's related to the circular economy, in particular We need policies on the uses of recycled glass, plastic and rubber. And we need viable industries established in the country to process these commodities. So we could go on and on about it. I applaud the motion, and it's getting late, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments from other councillors? Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Mr Mayor, just very quickly, I support your notice of your urgent business, I should say. I think that this is definitely in line with most of the thinking across the Municipal Association of Victoria and what we're saying as councils broad and wide across the state. The container deposit scheme is something that I have been speaking to my children about. They are looking forward to being able to raise money by collecting cans and bottles and things like that. So, look, I think that we need to challenge our young people about what it means to live in a world that is having to use recycling as a tool to keep the country and the planet safe. I'm supportive of your urgent business, and I appreciate you bringing this through to the chamber. And by the way, when you see the Minister tomorrow, there's probably quite a list of things that you've got. Can I check with you after the meeting that you've got everything on that list?
Send them through before you go to bed tonight. Thank you. Councillor Aiken.
I just wish to add to the comments as well too. Look, thank you very much to the Mayor for bringing this forward to us. The sad reality is that the disruption that the industry is going through is actually causing us to respond like this now, and it is sad because we have had the opportunity to respond before now, but at least we're doing something. It was actually the February council meeting in Drysdale where the Geelong Sustainability actually asked council to support a request to write to the Minister for the container packaging scheme, and essentially we've done nothing about that until now. Councillor Mason and myself and the CEO attended the MAV's strategic workshop about waste and other strategic issues that they have, and most of the items here were actually put forward by the Geelong Council at that function as well too, where we talked about the national packaging guidelines, which is a federal government response to the issue. We talked about the container packaging deposit scheme, and all of those are actually part of the MAV's response. So it is good that we're following what's actually been put forward now with the motion that's been put before to us tonight. So it is good we're now catching up with those items that have been out on the agenda for quite a long time. I don't really understand. This is a perfect example of where the three tiers of government should be working together to actually try and resolve what is an issue. I mean, we have been lazy, that most of our waste was sent to China and then that was stopped. The waste then started to go to Indonesia, and then now that's stopped in the last couple of weeks, and it's contributed towards the recycle market collapsing because there's actually no circular economy for that recycle. The basic principles are quite easy. The reality is, as local government, we have to be ensuring that we limit what goes in our bins, not increasing what goes into our bins. The container packaging system is a method of doing that, and we have to look at every other avenue that we can to try to reduce what actually goes into our bins. And that's actually what we can influence as local government. The state government certainly has a significant responsibility to actually try to create a market, an opportunity for the circular economy and reduce the impact that our waste is having on the environment. And the federal government has those national responsibilities in terms of the packaging systems, which ultimately everything is all leading to reduction of the amount of product that actually goes into our bins at the local government level. And every single step that we take to do that is what we should be endeavouring to support as a local council. And this motion just articulates what our position is and supports a number of initiatives that have been put in place already in the community who are trying to drag us along in this crisis.
Mr. Aiken, if there's no further comments, Councillor Nelson.
But I just have to say something, Mr. Mayor. I certainly applaud this urgent business. It's just a pity that it's had to get to this crisis. Calling on a climate emergency. We've certainly got a recycling emergency. The current state government's been in for 16 of the last 20 years and done nothing except collect $500 million worth of EPA levy. So I understand for a MRF costs around $50 million, $50 million, give or take. That'll leave them with plenty of money to spend, which no doubt they're good at. So it's a real no-brainer. Build the MRF and have the bottles and the tins and all that stuff that we used to have as kids. That was good fun. Thanks.
No further comment. I'll just close with the fact that we are a very good community, a well-educated community and a disciplined community in our recycling, and we don't want to lose that. In actual fact, we want to enhance that. I think this we're getting to a point where our community, we don't want our community to give up on us as a council or as an area in our recycling. So we'll do our best in keeping the pressure on where we can and try and keep every single option open, and hopefully that common sense and action can prevail. I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. Thank you for your support. I need a motion or mover and a seconder to take us into confidential. Move Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Contell. There's not one person to kick out of the chamber, so we'll go straight into it. Oh, sorry. Except those who are with us in internet land, we bid you good evening.